in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes of the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, and other times, most times, all the time, we go deep. And we have never gone deeper than we have in this episode. And I have to make this quick because right after this stream, just for your information, and I just talked about it on Instagram right now, we will be doing a live watch on Zoom. We are watching 4 episodes of The Twilight Zone. Just a casual live watch. It's not streaming anymore. It's not going to be recorded anywhere. Your name and likeness will not be used in any way. It's just a hangout for all of us to. I'll be sharing my screen with a full screen episode of The Twilight Zone. I'll make. You can talk while we're doing this. You can put on your camera too if you want to. You'll have in the side panel. You can see all the people participating. It's just going to be a casual live watch. You may even catch my siblings, my brother Isaac and my sister Adina, who are rabid Twilight Zone fans, among many other shows that we share, including movies like The Goonies. But anyway, I want to get to the episode ASAP. And one thing before we continue, maybe two. I edited this out in the episode, but I will be giving you guys details on a little charity thing that I want to do in light of the goings-on lately. I am narrowing down at least a U.S. and a U.K. charity, whom I got help from a couple people. I want to actually get maybe an Australia charity and maybe in a charity in Italy. So the basic premise is, and I'm going to cover this in a post sometime later on, maybe in a video. What I'm going to be doing is having people basically submit receipts that they've donated to these particular charities, or maybe I may make it open to any charity. But if you've given, let's say, a certain amount and you send me the receipt to my email address, I'll make this email address available for charity. I will give you the pick of the litter in the merch store. It's a limit 1 offer per household. So I will give you the details for that soon. I definitely want to make that happen. If this makes it so that we can, the people who can do it, do it, they will get something out of it. And I want to kind of make that a thing. So I'll give you the details for that soon. Last thing, if you noticed, there's this thing over here. If you want to support us, just head over to ko-fi.com/squawkingdead or head to squawkingdead.com and click the orange logo. During the stream, if you happen to give us a coffee, and a coffee is like $3, your name will pop up during the stream. It'll be there forever with the message that you left. And so what that goes towards the expenses of the show. Our current goal is to try to be self-sustainable. We're not in the black. So the idea is going to be that as soon as we get to a goal where we're self-sustaining, we can do other things. We can do better giveaways. So I want to do many more exciting things once we get to that part of our goal. In any case, so when you support us, you actually get to be a part of our recordings when we do record in the real-time chat. You have access to the unedited live stream that we have as well as the ability to download the unedited recordings, both audio and video. So it's quite the perk, and if I do say so. And so do that. Other than that, we are covering the ultimate episode of Denai Guerrera, her leaving the show. It's a hard one, but joining me and Rachel was a special guest, Kirsten Acuna, from the chief TWD analyst and contributor to Insider.com. Stay tuned. I'm going to start the episode right now. And again, if you happen to hop off, head over to ko-fi.com/squawkingdead anyway, because the meeting details for the Twilight Zone live watch is on our Ko-fi page, our ko-fi.com page. It's a Zoom meeting. You can click the link, or I've left instructions on how to connect to the meeting with the meeting ID and password. Join us. It's a casual watch. You'll have a lot of fun. And without further ado, I am going to be playing this episode. So enjoy it. It's a long one, but it's well worth it. Just getting Kirsten's insights, her ability to connect with Angela Kang and other people at TWD to confirm a couple things during the episode. It was a great time. I will definitely be having her on the show again. She was just a treat, and she was the perfect person to do what we do on a podcast. So without further ado, the episode in 3, 2, 1. We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes of the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news. Most times we make you laugh. Other times, we go deep. And today we have a special guest for you. But first, I'm with Cosmomon09, Rachael Burt. And last but not least, our special guest, Kirsten Acuna. You're going to tell us your life story. Get ready and go. No, I'm kidding. Tell us who you are, what you do, and how you're feeling lately.
How I'm feeling lately. I'm actually in kind of like high spirits. It's nice being able to like work from home. But to give you a little background on myself, so I'm a correspondent over at Insider. I write about primarily film, but a little bit of TV as well, where primarily I just write about The Walking Dead. How did I end up there? I wrote for TV Guide and for Time Out New York and Time Out New York Kids for a little while, like over a decade ago. And I had interned for both of them. I went to journalism school up in Syracuse. I originally thought that I wanted to be writing for magazines. And then when everything was moving digitally, I figured that wasn't going to be the game plan. So I tried to be flexible, and I had been in between a few jobs. I was looking for a steady journalism gig, and right out of college that was difficult. And while I was balancing like 3 different jobs, 2 of which had nothing to do with writing at all, I had heard about an internship, like a paid internship, which was nice at the time since most of these internships do not pay.
Right.
And it was for this like little startup called Business Insider at the time, and they were looking to grow and build out an entertainment team. And I knew one of my jobs over at TV Guide was just to maintain the press lists and to update, that all the time. So I knew a lot about, all the different contacts to be reaching out to. So I basically just came on with one person who had a background over at E! It was myself and Allie Wiseman, and we just started building up, the entertainment team over there. Back in 2012, I almost left to go back to TV Guide. I did a lot of research for them. I liked doing fact checking and that sort of stuff. And then I told BI I had an opportunity to leave, and they decided to keep me around. And I have bounced around the company from writing more about box office and Hollywood to going to at a time we had a separate kind of nerdier site called Tech Insider, where I was handling a lot of our Comic-Con coverage, right? And then we folded that back over into BI, and we had started Insider as an actual website, kicking off of, we originally launched that as a video platform, and we wanted that to then build out as a website. So now all of our entertainment coverage like really lives on Insider as of like January, February kind of. So yeah, that's how I got to be where I am now. And right now I'm just hanging in LA, and I guess I'm just hunkering down, working from home for the next month at least.
How long did you say that your tenure is going to be out there for? Was it July, you said?
It's supposed to be through July. I'm figuring out right now if I'm going to stay out here longer. I haven't talked to a lot of people about that yet, but I'm not getting to do all the things that I wanted to out here. Obviously, like I might just be holed up in this like Airbnb for a few months. So we're gonna see.
You're gonna get very familiar, even more familiar than you probably already are with Zoom, I suppose.
Yeah, this was something that we actually just started using company-wide like last week, because we were just using Google Hangouts, and well, we were basically just Google Hangouts.
Yeah. I think that's actually how we started out too, and then we realized, we can't do as much as we want to do with this. Like right now, if I just stop streaming or recording, it produces like several audio tracks that I can use to mix with different things, and it's pretty cool. But I think more people are using Zoom than they ever thought they would ever have to use in their whole entire lifetime. Like the DOE in New York City is using it for their classrooms. It's just insane. It's absolutely insane.
It looks like actually the Walking Dead writers' room might be using Zoom right now. I was looking at one of the writers' Instagram feeds, and their video chat looked like Zoom. I could be wrong, but
I think you're absolutely right. So I wanted to kind of also tell everybody why I brought you on too, because I'm sitting there doing the live tweet, sitting back on my chair with my little gut out, and the phone like right on my gut, just scrolling up. I'm like, motherfucker, she did the research for the Japanese short swords. Okay, motherfucker, she did the translation already. Fuck, man, she's taking the pleasure of finding these things out for me. And no, I'm being cynical because I am very thankful. After like my notes now are like half of what they need to be.
So when I watch every single episode, I just started a running doc at the top of the season where I just keep all of season 10 notes in there, just as ongoing.
Okay.
So I can easily search through it. And I noted, obviously, like right away when I get the episodes every Wednesday. Usually it's Wednesday morning. And I went in, saw the characters, and I noted that I didn't know that they were Japanese originally. So I kind of crowdsourced over Slack, and I was like, being careful, of who I was reaching out to, but I was like, hey, can anyone let me know what this is? And if you're maybe able to translate it. And I, right off the bat, like it didn't take long at all, maybe half an hour until one of my colleagues got back to me, sent it to a friend, sent it back to me and gave me a rough translation. The interesting thing is that they told me that the characters were broken. Like it wasn't full, they weren't full Japanese characters. And so I took what I learned from, a colleague's friend, sent it right over to AMC, and I said, hey, is Angela or can anyone at AMC confirm this? Instead of me just saying, hey, what's the Japanese message? I said, hey, this is what I have. Can you confirm that that's the phrase? And so I was like, just letting them know. I know what it is, kind of. I know it's Japanese. And they told me they were going to look into it, and they got back to me like really late Friday night Eastern time. Like it must have been 10:30 at the time. I didn't think I was going to hear back from them at all, because usually I'll take calls on Fridays up until 7 p.m. sometimes for them. And I just got to the point where I was like, all right, I don't think we're going to hear from anyone this week. And that was understandable because everyone was just going on lockdown. It was like the real zombie apocalypse. So I wasn't going to press. So I got that. The Daito and Shoto thing, I'm just a nerd, and I have read Ready Player One, and I just knew that from there. Okay.
Because I was wondering that too, because there's a lot of character names that are named Daito, and so trying to search for this like just cold was really, really difficult.
Yeah, Daito and Shoto are two characters in Ready Player One, and then they refer to themselves as Daisho.
Oh,
Big Little.
Whenever I look and find something that I really like, and that something that somebody else has found, I just make note of whoever I got that from at least. It may even be a second source, but I'll credit it back. And definitely when we go into the blogs, usually I'll do an embed of the tweet. But if I can avoid doing that and bring you on instead, I'm like, here she is. I don't have to do shit. Let's keep going. I'm probably still gonna do it, but it's just a lot better when you have the genuine article. So I figured out I just like shot in the dark. Why not invite her on? Stranger things have happened. You used to work in radio. You used to reach out to people directly all the time. I used to work in radio, and we used to just like randomly message like just artists, like music artists, like Coldplay and who the fuck were we interviewing at the time? It was like big names before there were big names. And then we had the Coldplay effect, which is kind of apt and ironic because they didn't interview with us like the first time, but when they started getting big, we dubbed what was called the Coldplay effect, which is like they pretended like we didn't exist. So Fuck you, Coldplay. Goodbye. Anyway, so that's okay. At me. Yeah, should be like the running gag of the show. At me.
That's your
Anyways,
tagline.
that's why. Yeah, that's my tagline. Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to shield you
Live it.
guys. Like I didn't want to just have you on to be like, hey, can you say these things and explain how you came to those? And like, no. That's not how this works. The way this works is that you have a fun time having laughs and going pretty deep into the episode and how we feel about it and what we think moves around it. And so give people a different experience.
Yeah.
My stupid face. So
I figured I kind of am starting to have all the time in the world after The Walking Dead is over. So,
wow.
yeah.
I'm kind of looking forward to it. I say this every now and again, by the way. Like Rachel, you've heard me say this before. Like, I'm not looking forward to 42 weeks of straight content. Because there's like a lot of graphics editing that has to go into like the next phase or season of what comes next, or we have to change certain formatting. I want to do different things, develop certain packages to, for prep. I want to do giveaways. So if there's no break, it makes it so impossible. I have to reach out to like graphic artists like weeks in advance, like for like Fear the Walking Dead season 6. So. But now I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable. I think people are feeling a little bit more creative now that there's a little less of their day job to do, unfortunately, which kind of brings me to this next topic. And I kind of wanted to take everybody's temperature, but first, before I do, I wanted to alert you guys to our latest morning squaffy, which was something we didn't ask you about, but we did anyway. Morning squaffy is basically a thing where you give us the topics, we create a response video, and we all continue the conversation in the comments. And this week, I just decided, hey, let's just talk about what we're dealing with. And I called it Corona Apocalypse. And I had a lot on my mind, and I didn't realize how much I did. And it kind of just went into stream of consciousness. And it was super boring. And as much as I cut it up, it was generally like larger thoughts about being in this moment and hoping that we take away something positive, and in spite of all the things that are going wrong even now. And Rachel kind of went into her personal struggles even right at the moment, and the worries going into the future. So I want you guys to watch that. And the hook is, and the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because I want your take. I'll be posting in the next couple of days, and I've already posted it in our Instagram stories and Facebook stories and Twitter. I am sending you guys the link to be able to give us your voice messages so that we can create a follow-up video. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you guys are feeling, thinking, any stories. Could be funny, could be tragic, could even be political. This is your forum. You can say whatever you want, whatever's on your mind, and we'll edit it down and we'll create a response video to our response video. So figure that one out. And we want to keep this conversation going because I know a lot of people that have a lot on their mind, a lot of people that are angry, a lot of people that are going stir crazy with their kids. And we want to just give you a forum to be able to air that out publicly, for our benefit. No, I'm kidding. We don't get any money. But for your benefit, so that you guys can have an outlet. I want to start with Rachel. You did the video with me. How have you been the last couple of days? Because this is like the first few days since you've had to close your shop, basically.
Yeah. Yep. I had to close down on Monday. I mean, obviously it's going to impact me in a very negative way. I don't know how bad it's going to be until I know for sure when I can open back up. I'm hoping after this big long break, I've been talking to my clients about it for a while now, and everybody that was coming in this past week anyway says, oh, thank you so much for being open. Everybody's closing. I'm so glad you're here. And I'm like, well, I'm here till they tell me I can't be. And then all of a sudden I wasn't allowed to be there anymore. So we kind of knew this was coming. It didn't, totally come out of nowhere, but I'm hoping once all this clears up and they say, okay, everybody can resume life as normal. I'm hoping once I open the shop back up, people are just going to like flood in. I'm hoping like the first month that I'm back open, I can make up for everything that I lost, hopefully. And hoping, landlords, my landlord, everybody's landlord can be a little bit, little lenient with everything that's going on right now. I mean, there's got to be some understanding, right?
Yeah, because if everybody's kind of suffering on the same plane, like we all kind of go down. I mean, I'm just hoping we don't start hearing about people like losing their, homes and stuff like that. So I'm,
Right.
and that's kind of like why I wanted to keep this conversation going, because I kind of wanted to keep a pulse on if that is a thing, because you may or may not hear those stories in the shuffle. So I kind of wanted to at least take people's temperature. Like I already have personal friends who in the food service industry, and people who bartend, they're already trying to look for unemployment. They're crashing the unemployment website. They're getting hung up on the phone call.
Yeah.
So I want to just keep their stories up and live, and I want to hear from them. And I'm checking into a lot. I'm checking with you, Rachel, at least, and then I'm checking in with
Yeah.
a couple of like singer songwriter pals that I used to when I was doing singer songwriting in the New York City area. So I'm trying to keep in touch with them. They're doing like these really cool things where they're playing concerts, like little live stream in-home concerts with like a Venmo account on their keyboards or their guitars or something, and like it helps. It has helped. I mean, I mean, it inspired me to like give, and that's the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
for people
I just
like,
don't know who can afford to give though. Like I would love to
yes,
contribute to somebody who's struggling, but then at the same time I go, wait, no, that's me.
yeah,
I'm that person too.
yeah, because my wife and I, we are managing. I'm getting more work than ever now, and because I work in IT, and
Yeah. Oh yeah.
she works in the DOE, but there's a catch for me. As my workload starts to pile up, it's going to start dropping off severely. I've already like heard from people who are from some of our customers who've had to lay off, some of which who've had to lay off half their workforce.
Mm.
Some of them whose turnaround time is not high. So, and some people had to cut their hours to like hourly. And it's a really weird and awful situation, which is, I mean, I didn't see quite the severe cuts coming, but here we are. I mean, nobody's making any sales. Boxes are still in warehouses, and depending on the industry, law firms are cutting half their lawyers. And paralegals. It's a tough time. So, any other ways that this is affecting you, Kirsten?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, just to give you both of you some context, I drove out to LA with my car cross country with my brother at the end of last year just to come out here and see how I liked it out in LA. I'm coming from New York City
Okay.
and New Jersey. So I grew up in Jersey. I've already been thinking that I don't think I want to drive back across the country at the end of July, beginning of August. So I'm kind of just starting to figure out a game plan for what I want to do. And honestly, I feel safest just staying where I am right now, if that's possible. So I'm going to try and figure out some sort of game plan. I feel extremely grateful to work for a company that has been very proactive, where we've been working from home since, honestly, I was told on 3/6 that I could start working from home because I had gone to an event at Disneyland, and I don't think anyone was then excited about me like being in the office, after going to Disneyland for something. And even I was nervous going there. I had said to I had reached out to Disneyland PR and I was like, look, I'm not looking to necessarily write anything, but I'm just wondering if you guys are taking some precautions. And I really didn't hear anything back. Didn't make me feel better about going to this press day it was for a vendor's campus. And so
You heard it here first. I'm kidding.
they gave us, well, we've written about stuff since, and all, but they gave us some Purell that day, and this was before everything started to close down. So I wish that I took more of the Purell, but this is currently the only Purell I have, that my Disneyland Purell.
So you're following those instructions to the letter. It's like a pea-sized amount. Yeah.
Basically, I'm just trying, because no one has any out here. It was the last thing I did out here for us, because I also write about Disney, I write about superhero movies and stuff. So the last thing I did was go to Mulan and
Oh man,
and see that, and that was 3/9, and I was also around a lot of people on that day. So I've just really been trying to keep to the 14-day thing
right
now since 3/9. So that's still like tomorrow. Hopefully then I'm okay. So I've been thinking about that, but I'm also fortunate enough to be in a position where I can, give to some others. So I've been trying to find, like Feed America, Broadway Cares, because I'm a big Like, I love just going to Broadway shows back home. And it's insane to see just all of that shut down right now.
Right.
So yeah, just trying to like give where I can, see who needs some help. But then because I know that I'm fortunate enough to just be somewhere where they were just kind of ahead of the game, and they've been very on top of us, just saying like, hey, if you need to take a mental break, if work is coming in slower, we get that. If you need to like have a chat with someone face to face, especially for some of us who might be living alone right now. So
Right. Like yourself.
like myself.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of playing it day by day right now. And honestly, I feel like I'm probably just going to stay out here longer than what I imagined I would have done. And that's okay. Like, I've been enjoying it out here, but you know, just staying cooped up in one place, I'm not going to get to do some of the things that I had planned on doing originally.
Right, right. I mean, it sounds like you have like almost a tabula rasa where it's like, okay, we can go anywhere from here depending on how this goes down. What we like to do at the start of the show is to give the reins over to one person, usually the person who's been on least.
Usually the newbie.
Yeah, usually the newbie. And basically have you give us like your overall impression of the episode, and we'll find a way to land somewhere where we can just weave around the topics that we want to go through.
I feel like this was actually one of the toughest episodes for me to write about, in terms of like, so I always usually put together a giant details you missed post. And I don't know if it was kind of because I was writing about a fake zombie apocalypse while I felt like I was living through a real apocalypse.
Right. or a lame apocalypse.
Or because there was just so much in this episode that I had to go back to like the season premiere. I mean, the series premiere actually for in some cases. I love the introduction to the episode when we saw Laurie Holden back. I was so excited, especially because this was something that I had pointed out. We were finally seeing the season 2 finale from Denai Guerrera's, from Michonne's perspective, and that's something that we never got, even though we did see a version of Michonne in the season 2 finale. That wasn't Denai. That was just some stand-in. She wasn't cast at the time.
Yet another thing I found out that night. Thank you.
You're welcome. But that made that moment extra special, getting to finally see her in that season 2 finale, even though at first, first time you're watching the episode, you're like, oh my goodness, did they bring back Laurie Holden? And I actually stopped and paused and brought up Netflix because it's the easiest way to access the other episodes. Right. Went to the season 2 finale, and I tried to watch them side by side on my iMac. And I'm like, well, I can tell the lighting's different. And I was like, but it looks exactly the same. And this was, another reason I wanted to try and speak with Angela or someone about the episode. So that was when I had found out that they had just basically brought back the old footage and they shot some new footage to look like the old scenes, and then they merged them together. Right. And I thought it was pretty seamless for the most part. Yeah, so fairly. My expectations were, okay, are we just going to have an entire what if episode? And then we're back with Virgil and Michonne. And Virgil's character, I think, frustrated me for a bit until we got to that montage scene. I will say, Denai, I was just watching the episode again right before we jumped on this call. Her expressions in this episode, she has so many great facial expressions when she's like finding out
a wide gamut of expressions.
Yes. And just like things that you can gif and meme for years to come. Like when she first learns that Virgil's family is dead, her look that she gives, it's just priceless.
Right. When it dawns on her that he's essentially living outside. Who does that? Mm-hmm. It's like this is wrong, and I'm gonna stop this. Hold up, I'm gonna stop this right now.
Every expression that Denai had on her face was basically every feeling that I had in my body as I was watching through the episode for the first time. And I knew that other fans were probably going to be frustrated, and they were like, where is this going? And then Virgil, I think that the most frustrating part of the episode is as Denai is trying to silently kill a walker, and then you have Virgil making this giant noise, like dropping stuff and everything in the building. And I was like, this guy just needs to go. So
I think
And then,
it's like the Eugene effect, though. Like, it's everything we felt about, let's say, like a Eugene. You know, like, who was it? I feel like it was somebody that was on the show. It's like, are you, like, you're still here, or how did you make it this long? Or I can't remember who it was, but it's the way we used to feel. Like, it's like, you're still here. How did what? How did you what? So, yeah.
But especially when we were seeing Virgil and it looked like he didn't have anyone else at that point, and you're kind of thinking, like, this guy made it 10 years into the zombie apocalypse, like, by himself? What is he doing? And I was like, well, I guess he's on this island by himself, so okay. So I think for me, the episode, and for other people, I check in with my mom after every single episode. She's a huge Daryl Dixon fan, like every mom. And let me see if I can actually just read her
yeah, take your time.
We're
recording now, so
we just started a family chat since,
that's great.
Because we're all in quarantine and we're all in different spaces. But she always gives me like her 1-sentence review of
really? Okay.
Walking Dead.
Do you include that in your articles? Because I think you should. Like,
I think I just tweet them out because I don't do reviews for every single episode.
Okay,
like that's just not my MO. I'll do reviews, but it would be funny. I should just do like my mom.
Like unexplained at the end of the article, like Mama Acuna, and then just the line and then no explanation.
What mom says.
Yeah.
What mom says, yeah. No, so my mom said, at first I wasn't sure I was going to like it, but then as the show went on, I really thought it was a great episode. I even cried. And she said probably the same with me about the first 20 minutes. I was like, oh, I'm not liking this episode, but then it got really good. The Boots and Judith were amazing, and then she sent some emojis, like a little smiley face and a little cry face. And I usually use my mom as a barometer for what I think like the general audience will take away from the episode. I just feel like my mom is usually on that same level. My mom never read the comics, so she feels very differently about the show than the way my brother and I do. Like, for instance, we were so excited when Negan was coming onto the show, and then my mom, we couldn't understand for the longest time at first why so many people were upset with the season 6 finale, season 7 entry. And then so we went to our mom and we were like, how did you feel? And she was like, I hated it. I thought it was too, and all.
It's
and I was like,
wrong.
oh, okay. This makes sense. I got it. So I always check in with her because I feel like I'm just too ingrained in this universe where I just have such a different perspective of the episode. So
just to kind of give you a thing though, like the way our podcast started off is you had Carol, which had extensive comic knowledge coming into this, like, season 2 or 3, and then, rewatching, getting caught up by season 4. And me, I started from the beginning just watching. I had the opportunity to read the comics, but I said, no, this is good. And then I just continued watching the show. So when we met in season 8 to do this podcast, I met knowing full well I cannot read the comics now because I need to represent that part of the audience. And she would just keep going. I wanted to be that perspective of somebody who loves sci-fi horror and just really good narrative storytelling, and just to judge it on the merits of that alone. And I wanted her to be able to chime in from the rear and going, well, don't hold your hopes for that. Or like everything that I thought would happen or could happen, or not everything. Okay, not everything. At first, we didn't want to talk about comic spoilers, but eventually we kind of caved as things started to coalesce. So that's kind of how we started out. And so as we started adding more hosts, we added more voices and more perspectives, like Rachel's, which I value very highly because you're like a raw nerve, a literal raw nerve who has read the comics. But you judge the show on its merits too, which is interesting. Where do we go from here?
I think I said this to you earlier, Dave, too, but ever since Judith had her moment with Mary in the cell, I feel like every episode since then has been all about, what if you met the wrong people first? Or what if you met different people first? And this episode fell right into that too. I mean, we basically see what would have happened if Michonne had met the wrong people first. And I think wholeheartedly that's exactly what would have happened. And that might be part, why she's so scared too. It did, when she tells Virgil, it showed me, it took my family from me and showed me hell, because she knows that is a completely possible outcome as well.
Right. Her alternate ending is not quite like what his is. Like if he had not locked the doors and gotten them out, that would be his heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And I said this to you when we were covering that very episode where Judith says this to Mary. Let's give her a little respect.
She's married.
I kind of backtracked and I realized, okay, at least the second half of the season, but I think the entire season, or season 10, maybe the entire series, the entire series, kind of illustrates, okay, what if, you just met the wrong people first? Like, you can go all the way back to the Saviors. You just met the wrong people first. And how that looks like and how it turns out. But there's a whole other factor of this too, like, because shit does happen. And this episode is kind of an exemplary of that. Like, even though Michonne found the right people first, or made the right decision first, or took a chance on Andrea first, when it seemed like she was so down the hole that she wouldn't, her life still had their ups and downs. Everybody around them did. And all those things led to different outcomes. And this episode is definitely one of them. Like, you go backtrack this entire episode, if things didn't go down the way that they did, as awful as they were with Virgil, I'm not 100% certain she would have found the etching of her and Judith on the iPhone. I'm not 100% certain she would have found the boots. So it's just one of those things that as much as we want to like rage and like pull out our hair, which we don't have, well, you don't either. If things didn't go down the way they did, she would never have known that there was a possibility, something that she wrote off a long time ago, that Rick was alive. So it's a mixed bag.
The Vision Quest, I felt like it served a few purposes, and one of them I was very excited to see on this episode for the reason that I think that The Walking Dead has been trying to get across this point of what if you didn't join up with the right people for a while, and I just don't think that they've really never sold that story to the viewers until maybe Sunday's episode. That they tried to do it when they brought back Morales.
Yeah.
And I was so upset, and I think a lot of people were upset and frustrated that he was only back for like one episode, because they easily could have went seconds. And they easily could have went and shown his entire, like, they could have done Michonne's flashback. They could have done that with him in a whole separate episode if they wanted to keep him around for a while, and then they just didn't. And I thought that would have been a really interesting avenue to explore, and they just didn't do it for whatever reason. So I feel like
they did it ham-handedly, like.
Right. Yeah. They kind of just, you
could tell like they tried to do that. And it just, and then the way he went out just fell short.
Yeah.
There's no conflict.
I feel like they've been trying to tell us, and even I had spoken with the actor who plays him.
Juan G. Pereira?
Juan Gabriel Pareja, right?
Pareja, yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And he had said to me basically the same thing about how, sometimes people just don't view it from the other perspective of like, maybe Rick, everything that he's doing isn't great. And I think everyone always just brings up the example of season 6, episode 12, which was one of the moments that they revisited when everyone just slaughters, when Glenn and Heath, kill some of the saviors, and they're killing the saviors in their sleep. And I just don't know if The Walking Dead has ever really gotten that point across. And one of the writers, Kevin, I'm gonna mess up his last name. I think
Diebold.
Yeah. He had said to me that this is something that they always discuss in the writers' room. He was like, we always kind of joke about, if there is a real apocalypse, make sure you don't have someone named Rick in your group, or he'll or he'll probably destroy your community.
It's really funny that you mentioned that, like, because I remember at the time, like, throughout probably season 8, and even the beginning of season 9. Like, if you haven't figured out by like season 9 that, okay, Rick hasn't always made the best decisions, like, even though he has for the most part, he has like good intentions, like his ideas sometimes are not fully formed or not carefully thought out. And so they often go awry, as they say. So it's this weird thing where, you want to be in his corner. It's kind of like the way Aaron was this season. Like, you see how he was handling Mary, and you see how, because Rachel, you and I had this interesting discussion about how, is Alden right? Is Alden and Earl Sutton right? And then, because you want to be with Aaron, you kind of want to side with Aaron, but at the same time, you're like, not yet, Aaron. Not. And the clip was called "Not Today, Aaron." Like, because it is an interesting debate. Like, we talk a lot about I think these days we do talk a lot about and sometimes we talk in absolutes. We want a lot of things on paper, and we dream a lot of things on paper, and we have ideals, like things we look towards, and we shoot out like talking point memos, kind of like that. You know, when we talk about certain topics of discussion, whether it's politics, whether it's larger ideas and ideologies, but then like when it comes down to practicality, and you know, we're talking about a zombie apocalypse, it doesn't get more practical than that. Like sometimes you just kind of have to go, well, you're talking a big game, but it's not practical, son. So that's the name of the game. So like, in somewhere in the middle, like we meet, you know, as people. Like maybe we can take away something from here and take away something from there and meet in the middle somewhere. Like, well, maybe we can figure something out. And I feel like the closest we ever got to that was season 9 Rick. Like, heart in the right place, did what was best for the most amount of people, and that's all he had. and even then it failed, essentially.
I think we were all convinced that Rick made good decisions because at the time it was Shane making those decisions, and by comparison,
as a foil,
Rick seemed more sane.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I think it's that, and also you want to just follow the protagonist of your story, right? I saw this same thing happen with. I had this discussion with people about Breaking Bad, and I think that when we were getting to like the end around season 4, season 5, I remember that so many people had just binge watched the show to catch up to season 4 when it became really popular, and they maybe watched it all in a few weeks, so they still had the idea of Walt season 1 in their minds, right? Of him being this like good guy, and he was not a good guy by the end of the show. But so many people were going off on his wife Skylar and like how she was an awful human being. And I was like, guys, like he's not good anymore. And I kind of like, and not the same with Rick exactly, because Rick, as you said, with season 9, I think he's fine. But I think that there's some mentality behind just fans getting behind the protagonist of a show and being very protective of them no matter what they do. They just can't do any wrong. And I kind of see that similarity between like Rick and Walt to some extent.
Yeah, Rick and Walt.
People are very defensive of Rick. You know, if you say like he's never been my favorite character, and like, oh my gosh, if I say that to the wrong person, it's like, what? You don't like Rick? I'm like, I didn't say that. I just
excuse me, I didn't say that. Right, because
like,
of this.
If he's not the best character, then you hate him. Like there's no gray area. Like no, that's not it. Calm down.
But you know what's so funny about this fandom is that you find enough people that kind of glom themselves onto a particular character whom is kind of a third rail, in my opinion, or maybe that's not a right word, but like Shane, right? Some people are like, Shane did nothing wrong or something like that. And like,
that he did plenty wrong.
There are some characters that when you look back actually look not rose-colored. I mean, you could look back and be like foggy about like who they exactly were, like Shane, but when it comes down to it, looking back on this show and looking at some of these characters, you can get a different perspective, and that's very true, but only to, in a sense, to realize how lucky they were to kind of get to where they got, like especially with Shane. Like, I often have this debate about how if Shane had survived and Rick had died, my argument was always, oh, they would have never made it out of Woodbury alive, because Shane would have been Shane. It's a complex what-if debate, Mirror Darkly, which is kind of like this episode a little bit, but I always have this, like, Woodbury probably would have looked a lot different, and the ethos of the group would have definitely been different, and who could tell who would have survived out of that? And I can easily tell you the answer to that, which is Lori and Carl and nobody else. But, because that was the point. Shane was only interested, kind of like what we were talking about before, like, okay, you have to kind of worry about your own orbit. He was only concerned with Lori and Carl. That was it. Rick was not even in the equation. Nobody was in the. They're only in the equation in as much as they can be helpful.
Is that wrong? Do you fault him for that? I don't.
At a certain point, though,
if that was your family, if that was you and Evelyn out there, and you were in a group of people, and it came down to you and her, if it came between her and a member of your group. Right. You would save her over anybody else.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that, because I'm going to pivot right now. Because I watched Rick giving that speech to everybody saying how he killed his best friend for you guys because of all the research we had to do for this episode. And and then but on the heels of doing that morning squaffy, and in that morning squaffy where I just mentioned how like having that one weird discussion with my wife about a specific ingredient about a dish and being like, bitch, it's the apocalypse. You're going to get what you get. And like realizing the mistake I had made. Like first of all, it's not the apocalypse. Second of all, like how easily you think you're this, but you're definitely not this. When it all comes down to it and your back's against the wall, you're going to be challenged and you're definitely not going to be a Rick. You are not going to be a Rick. You're going to be some version of Shane, perhaps a Eugene. You know, like some sort of Mad Max rules, you know, like somebody's going to be doing something unsavory in a bathroom somewhere. That's what I'm saying. Or, you know, be a Shane. Like somebody's going to either go this way or they're going to go kind of that way. Either way, I'm not sure. And you're right. You know, like that's the thing. I want to be able to say I've learned enough, but I know that I've already learned that it's very possible that I won't be.
I just want to say I would love to see what if singular standalone episodes or webisodes or something of like other characters and if they had lived, like going off of. And I know that this is something that like Kirkman has talked at least about it, I think near Comic-Con one year in the past about writing separate what if stories maybe for some characters. And I think that would just be so much fun to see after Sunday's episode.
Right.
And it would.
And by the way, as Gimple was announcing some of that stuff in the either the mid-season finale of Fear the Walking Dead or, you know, San Diego Comic-Con announcements and stuff like that, there was some mention of like doing way more content beyond TV and we had been talking about like, okay, when they found the tapes for Abe and the Doc, you know, in season 4, and we kept throwing this idea around, and as people were talking more shit about what they were going to do for the Walking Dead universe, we were like, how about little one-off prequels? Maybe. And like seeing that encounter between Abe and Eugene with Althea, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
How that would fit in the context of the universe.
They released some of Al's tapes, but not the ones we want to see.
Yeah, come on.
Right.
Stop holding back.
They made that announcement, I believe it was November 4th, 2018. I think it was Andy's last episode when they announced the movies. That was when I think Scott Gimple had announced like all of these other things coming to the universe as well.
Was it as early as that? Wow. Yeah, I guess they would have to, right?
Yeah.
So like one-off episodes, maybe what if episodes. Yeah, so it could go anywhere. And I'm so that's the thing, like that nugget is one of those things that they haven't talked about since, which is always something that like if they're not talking about it, you better keep remembering it. Because when it happens, you're gonna lose your shit. Be like, I still remember when he said that, and people have forgotten like certain things. Like people don't even know that like they were planning on releasing the season premiere for The Walking Dead World Beyond at the same night as the season finale of The Walking Dead. And I had to kind of remind a couple of people. I think that's why they pushed it off. They were going to be okay with airing the season finale of The Walking Dead and then airing eventually World Beyond, but it just got away from them.
Just so you know, and I'm sure that there are just some readers who don't know, originally tomorrow was supposed to be the embargo release date on the reviews for The Walking Dead World Beyond. Everyone was going to put them out, and then also myself and a few other people had gone down for set visits for that show in November, and we were finally going to be able to write about stuff tomorrow. And we were asked Monday just to hold on to all of that stuff until some later date. I think it has to deal with, my reasoning, I think it's advertising, dollars. And if they're holding up on the other shows, if they halted production on the other shows, right? Fear, and then the pre-production for The Walking Dead season 11, they want to make sure that they have that they have stuff for later in the year. So
right.
That was my sense.
And that makes a lot more sense than the the movies makes sense in a different way because of concession stand sales and stuff like that. But I hadn't actually thought of that. Like that is a good response to kind of tell people, the populace, okay, well, if we're advertising on certain products that you can't get, what's the point? So
yeah, look, you have The Walking Dead season 10 finale. that's one of their biggest, that has to be one of their biggest ad sales nights, right?
Typically.
And why wouldn't you want to lead in The Walking Dead World Beyond with The Walking Dead season 10 finale? That's just like easy viewers right there, for a show that may, like, you know, if you're leading in with Fear the Walking Dead or anything else, like it may not get as many viewers. So
right.
Especially for something that's supposed to be a limited 2-season series. So that just doesn't, it didn't make sense to me also to just not air the two together. So,
Right.
and I don't, should we tell Rachel about the other news then that was announced today?
Yeah. Speaking about things etched into our minds.
Earlier today, I had heard that there was going to be something announced at some point. And then
She's looking more worried by the minute.
So after 5 p.m. Eastern time, AMC had announced that basically due to the coronavirus, they did not use the coronavirus. But here's the statement that they said: current events have unfortunately made it impossible to complete post-production of The Walking Dead season 10 finale. So the current season will end with its 15th episode on April 5th. They will air the Walking Dead finale at some time later, no date given, on the network as a special episode. And they released this like cool artwork of Daryl among a sea of walkers. And
what might look like a whisperer too, by the way.
Yeah, maybe behind him it does look like a whisper over his shoulder. And, you know, some people were like, oh, is this because, you know, again, of ad dollars? I think some people were skeptical of the post-production thing, that people were like, oh, isn't it finished? And then Greg Nicotero, he took to Instagram, and he, just to give people some context, and he had said, post-production, for those who are curious, involves VFX, music, sound mixing, and sound FX. Right. This process usually goes up to about 3 weeks from air date. I'm finding out about this at like the same time you guys are, and it's disappointing, but the episode will not disappoint. Be safe, everyone. And someone else who works on Aaron McLean, who actually works as a VFX supervisor on The Walking Dead, he had also took to Twitter just to say something very similar to Greg about how they're working on post-production for, you know, months after filming wraps. And, right. You know, so for anyone who was trying to say like, oh, I don't know, I think they're just holding off on this complete episode. Like, you know, this is what Greg and other people have said.
Right. As the weeks go on and it gets harder to reach that air date, you know, you kind of want to cross that finish line, but as much as you want to release a properly finished product full with like ADR effects, VFX, you know, all the bells and whistles. And sometimes you're going to fall short. But I think the idea is actually a good one, though. You sort of end the season with 15 and then have this like big, I mean, they could make a fanfare thing of it where you have the TWD special into The Walking Dead World Beyond, and make a night of it. And then it, you know, you have a better product by the end of it. You can tighten some screws, you can polish the studs and all that stuff. And then you can get even more advertising dollars and then jump right back into all the other content too. So, you know, it could be potentially better. Let's be the writers on the show. But if they really wanted to be smart, they could just title it like The Walking Dead World Beyond X TWD or something like that. Like TWD with TWD, WB, TWD. Like some sort of weird special.
Come up with the hashtag and we'll tweet it out at at both AMC and the Skybound people who are tweeting all the time. And
right, it's going to be very hard.
Will latch onto it.
Yeah, exactly. We'll figure it out between all of us. We'll think of something. What's interesting about opening up with that scene in the beginning of the episode is that it's almost like as if they kind of go into it and then they rip you right out of that scenario. Which of course they have to do that because they're like they want to give you the what the fuck effect. They kind of want to go, what did I just watch? What type of torture porn shit did I just watch? Is this where we're going today? Is this what we're going today? This is not what I ordered. This is not what I want. I don't want Andrea to die. Okay, some people did want Andrea to die at the time. People, get over it. But when they pulled back and they finally went into the Vision Quest, which I don't know why I didn't think of it as a Vision Quest at the time, but now we're calling it that.
I wasn't calling it that at all, actually.
I wasn't either.
It just the what if scenario.
I was calling it Through a Mirror Darkly. Like I was like that Star Trek Enterprise episode.
I think the Walking Dead team were referring to it as like the sliding doors effect, like the Gwyneth Paltrow film, and that was
course
what I
they
had
would.
heard. Yeah.
I mean, there's the butterfly effect. There's the, sliding doors. On the surface reactions, like Rachel, on the surface reaction when Michonne started tripping out, because I can see a lot of people having mixed feelings about this. Like, were you like, what the fuck is this? Or were you more like, okay, this is kind of cool?
Well, I kind of figured something was going to happen because she passed out twice for no reason. And obviously something was going on. So after the weird water dripping, and as soon as she bit into her apple and then woke up and the apple was gone, I thought, oh shit, he drugged her. So I was kind of waiting to see what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen. And then all of a sudden the floor started doing this. And I'm like, oh shit, they're going there. Okay, we're doing this. Everybody hang on.
Hang on tight.
Yeah,
Michonne's going on a ride.
Hang on tight. We're going someplace that we've never gone before. This is fun.
And in a way,
I love this show. I watch a lot of TV, a lot of shows. And I say it all the time. This is the only show that keeps me guessing. Like, after 10 years, I still have no idea what to expect.
Well, what did you think about that moment? That right when things started to go down? Because you could be like, oh, this is hokey. What the fuck are you guys doing?
So I'm looking at my notes because I'll take notes in real time as I'm watching the episode for the first time. And so sometimes, like, and I'll timestamp the minutes. I have a WTF. And I was like, WTF was in the food. And then you go back, and when you're watching the episode for the second time, you realize, oh, he's picking those flowers and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, I gotcha. And then when Sadiq came back, I was like, oh my goodness, because I thought Avinash did such a great scene there. And then as soon as I realized that they were doing a what if, I was just set. I was like, this is everything I've ever wanted to see, because I've always, as we were talking about earlier, I had wanted to see, or I wanted people to see it from the other perspective, from the other point of view, the story. I'm a big Lost fan, and I was a big fan of when they did the episode of showing like the other 100 or whatever days on the island. And I've wanted
of the
to see
others,
that on the others, exactly. So
which,
I wanted.
There was a vibe of that too, by the way.
Yes,
even on the island.
On the island, yeah. And so I was all in on this, and something else that I had noticed upon multiple watches was I don't know if you guys picked up on this too at all, but I thought that there were these little seeds planted for where her mind was going to go, like in terms of what episode she was going to revisit. So there was a moment early in the episode where Virgil says the word clear, which is the name of episode 312, and then
save me some time.
And Michonne revisits the backpack moment. And if you go back and look at Virgil when they're walking across the island, he has a very similar backpack that he's wearing to that hitchhiker, also in that same episode. And so I thought that those were little things that maybe would have stayed subconsciously in Michonne's mind to bring her back to those moments of guilt that she had felt bad about in the past.
Oh yeah, and look at the references to orange. She's wearing kind of an orangey top. The cot that they find in the room is orange, that they use as a shield. You'll see different scenes with like there's like an and this is like a film thing where you see like something orange is in the scene always, or I don't know about always, but often, which, like you said, and that makes a lot more sense. Keying that into how that plays into her vision quest makes so much more sense now. Seeing that all over the place. There's even something about Virgil's attire that kind of, and I know this sounds really weird, but does kind of remind me of a cross between like Morgan and like in Sadiq even. There was just something about the tones, like the tones and the type of clothes that he was wearing that kind of reminded me about those two characters specifically. I mean, somebody who went mad, but also somebody who, and this is something that I know I didn't notice right away until I was just doing more research, but I was like, oh my God. I'm reading, I think it was even Brandon's article on this at the time, in episode 100, where, Sadiq is the answer to what happened to the backpack guy. Like, what if backpack guy survived? And so you have to kind of go way back, because I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole when I was doing research. As Carl, Michonne, and Rick were driving away from Backpack Guy. I think it was in season 2 near the end. Was it
For
2?
Backpack Guy?
Yeah.
That's 312. That's also 312.
312. Okay.
Yeah.
So Carl had experienced that, and then as we get into season 8, they have the opportunity to repeat the whole process all over again with Siddiq, and Carl's like, no, enough. There's got to be something more than just ignoring people, just keeping it to our people. You know, we've got to reach out. We got to help people. You know, it's like mercy for the traveler, like a mercy for the lost, actually. And so when she sees Siddiq as the first person that they see, it could have easily gone the other way, and it kind of almost did go the other way. But it's interesting that they choose him because, as a result of saving him, he becomes part of the community, a valued doctor, a voice of reason for Michonne, as we saw throughout season 9 a little bit here and there. Even the beginning of season 10, where like they're having these moments about talking about their kids, which is also kind of her downfall as she trips balls because we lose Siddiq. And there's that whole thing where you see almost echoes and reflections of her with like Rick about being responsible for people dying, and there's a lot going on in just this beginning part. You are tripping balls just as she is, trying to think of all the themes this ties into. And by the way, those flashes of that walker do look like Avinash, right?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. And, you know, unfortunately, all I had to go off of was just an email that Angela sent me with some thoughts on the episode. So I didn't get to ask about like specific things like that. Otherwise, I would have went down some rabbit hole. But yeah, that's what I imagined that was supposed to be Siddiq.
Right. The Backpack Guy gone right, that sort of thing. So it's funny how you see both sides, and they're trying to anchor you to one or the other, and then all of a sudden Michonne finds herself back in that moment of, what if you found the wrong people first? Or, you know, we'll say wrong in quotes.
Yeah. I mean, do we say, because I don't know if I agreed with other people who were going, oh, Deny, what was it like playing evil Michonne? And I was like, well, from her, I'm going to go Star Wars for a minute. Well, from her perspective, they weren't evil, you know? So.
Right. But
we've been saying that for a long time too. You know, if we had started this story with Negan, our group would be the villains.
Especially at the time they meet too. In the condition that they were in.
I mean, Daryl blew them up with a rocket launcher. I mean, from the outside, we are the bad guy. I think that's, you know, kind of a bigger idea of going on right now too. Everybody thinks they're the good guy. Nobody thinks they're the bad guy. Didn't Negan say that? Nobody thinks they're the bad guy. They're all just trying to survive the way they know how.
It does kind of bring you back to that question that you asked me. If it came down to you, your wife, and somebody else, what would you choose? Obviously, I'd choose my wife. But and I've fought that argument to the end. And but at the end of the day, like the further we go down the series, you realize there's really no right answer.
I think I have a better scenario for you though. If it came down to your wife and another person, however, that other person is a doctor who could treat the rest of your group. Oh,
the trolley, the trolley problem.
The trolley problem, yeah.
You know what the fucked up part is? Probably still choose my wife. Honey?
Would ya? He's just saying that because she's listening.
No. Yeah. I don't know. It's because it's not, the whole exercise is to kind of really reveal a part of you. It's not really to kind of really choose. It's not supposed to be a Sophie's choice. It's supposed to get in your head. You know, there's no good choice and there's no bad choice. Honestly.
Right. There is no right answer, which is probably, you know, the point.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, that's kind of like why we do what we do, is because we it's all about really just, it's all different philosophical and ethical exercises bouncing against each other, and different philosophers saying, no, that's the right decision. No, that's the right decision. Oh, utilitarianism. Fine. Cool. Like you said, we are seeing pops of the orange, reminders of Backpack Guy, perhaps reminders of Morgan with the clear, reminders of what they've had to do in the past in terms of clearing walkers. But you do have to kind of see how annoyed she is in the way in. Rightly so, sort of. You do have to take into account like the way she's been the last 2 seasons and the reveals of why that is, like in Scars, what she had to deal with in terms of Rick's loss and stuff like that. I don't think she ever really truly 100% got it back. As much as there was some sort of a resolution at the end of Scars, I still don't think she was back to where the way she was in bed with Rick writing the charter. a better future, a better tomorrow. It's the furthest thing from her memory. So when you're going down this trip and you go back to the beginning of the episode, you start to realize, are we looking at the Michonne, current Michonne, what she would have done in that scenario now? It does kind of make you think about that, because I often wonder, given what she's been through, losing Rick, going through that incident in Scars of last year, I wonder if she would make the same decision to save Andrea. And so I kind of give it to you, like, Michonne of today, Michonne as of the beginning of this episode, do you think that that's what's going on in this vision, that she would have made that decision with all the knowledge she had today? Had she never met Andrea in the first place?
I like that thought.
Really good question.
Because that's another reason why you'd bring that to at the beginning of the episode. Because that's what I thought was going on.
Right. Well,
yeah.
Well, obviously we know she does obviously, rescue Andrea, because we saw how that played out. But
right.
But Michonne now, well, and that would be, man, gosh, find words.
I'm looking up because I want to look up and revisit, now having heard your interpretation of this. I want to revisit, and I asked Angela specifically, like, why, like, what is the what if sequence supposed to mean? And I wonder now if her words ring differently because of everything that you said.
So because of course she's being cryptic.
Let me bring this.
She's me in high school. Right. Right. Here, hold on. I'm just going to read through this and see if this helps go along with your theory at all. She said, so this was from Angela Kang. She said, for Michonne's last episode, we found ourselves thinking a lot about her character and who she is at her core. She's made some hard choices along the way, but overall her arc has bent her towards other people and mercy over pure, cold pragmatism. Yes. Like, I can't read. When Michonne came into the show, she was a good Samaritan. She didn't have to help Andrea, but she put herself at risk to save a stranger. But at other times, she's denied help to strangers or even attacked them. So we thought it'd be interesting to explore a parallel universe story that's taking place in her mind as her values are tested with this complicated character, Virgil, right? Right.
And that's all that she really gave me. Doesn't help to totally answer.
Probably going through what she did, helped her remember who she was at her core too. Maybe if she hadn't gone through that, when she stumbled upon those two people, it may have gone differently.
Had she not at the end of the episode?
Yes.
Okay.
At the very end of the episode, if Michonne had not gone through her vision quest, she may have passed those people up.
Oh boy.
She may not have put her hand out and said, "Come on, let's go."
So
I agree. I think that's an accurate read.
So your answer right now does kind of lend credence to what I was saying, though, because it made me think of something completely different, which was, take that a little further. Let's say she meets those people. Let's say she decides not to help them and continues moving forward. Because here's the thing: had Michonne not go through this whole entire experience, the whole experience, not just the trip, but what happens after, she may or may not have helped those people, but it would be in the name of trying to get to Rick faster, and that's not the point. The point isn't to get to Rick. The point is to remember what he represents, or what he learned finally at the end of season 8, which was, what she says to Virgil right at the very end is like, mercy brings you peace. It brings you a piece of your soul. It gives to others. It gives people a chance to be kind of like what Negan says, to be a resource. But it gives something. It gives something to the world that otherwise would have been snuffed out. There's almost utilitarianism in it, but it also gives you something in return. And so, like, everything gets a return. So going back to those two people, let's say she didn't help them and she found Rick. Could she say, and I'm going to bring this back to a specific point, but let's say she finds Rick at the end and she had to go through all these people, like not helping these people, probably killing a couple of other, maybe innocent, maybe not so innocent people, maybe scared people along the road who are trying to, defend themselves against strange people. Kind of like my Shane thing earlier with my wife. But then, like, you get to the point where you get to Rick and it's like, hey, what did you do to get here? Not a lot of good things. Well, I don't know. But here's the point. Take it back to Carol. And so you have to realize that there's some things that you're going to do that have a cost. And Rachel, I don't mean to upset you or anything like that, but like, because I know we've been through this before.
We're doing this.
All right, let's just, roll up our sleeves now. But like the idea of, okay, so first of all, fighting for the living versus fighting for the dead, but let's put that aside, versus fighting for the living. But then there's like the idea of, okay, you meet Henry at the pearly gates and it's like, you avenged my death, but what did you do to get there? Oh, I killed a couple of our friends. Sorry. So he's like, what did you do?
Well,
like,
let's be honest.
Michonne at the end, what did you do? Yeah, I'm just using aphorisms.
So just because I may be purposely blocking something out, but who specifically has Carol gotten killed?
All I gotta say is Dynamite.
Who specifically has Carol gotten killed?
Well, if she didn't get, let's say, Connie killed, just for example. Oh, she's raising her hand.
I was going to say season 3. Didn't she burn Karen and the other guy?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I meant
Karen
like
and
now,
David.
since the whisper.
Okay.
Everybody's on top. Yeah, no. Oh,
mind erase.
Carol has definitely killed.
I'm like, Carol's
definitely killed people, but it was always necessary. I mean, as of recently, everybody says, "Oh, Carol's getting people killed with her actions," but who?
No,
who has she killed?
It's complicated. It's complicated when you frame it that way, but it's just the idea of the possibility of those actions when not discussed with the rest of the group, and we know why now. We kind of sort of know why now because of the help that Negan and the pact that Negan and her have. It's complicated because it seems like this one has one job, this one has another job, and they're both desperate to get it done. Negan does it with a little bit more finesse, let's just say.
A little more gracefully.
Yeah. I mean, like we said, Negan be Neganing. He doesn't care about, like, breaking a few eggs to make an omelet. But in a sense, Carol has never been has been sort of different, but not that much different in the past, in certain examples. But the whole point being that, like Daryl says, I thought we were past this shit. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. And I only bring it up because it's a good comparison to make because of the type of character Michonne is running towards and the kind of character she almost became several times in the series. Several times she, when she decided not to put down her sword, looking at it on the mantle and saying, am I going to pick this shit up? I don't know, maybe. And her putting Rick down a couple times as he was making his Rick Tater speeches on the streets of Alexandria, that sort of thing. And so them kind of playing off each other, both of them pulling the other back from the brink, that sort of thing, which is kind of why we want to see them back together because, they're like the yin to the yang, that sort of thing. Like at certain points one needed the other more. So going back to Carol, it's kind of like, well, one, she doesn't have that kind of person. We thought it was Daryl. We're not sure. And the good news is that Carol seems to realize this by the time we see sneak peeks, as she chooses to self-isolate again or something. However, it's just a really good foil to. It's a good way to kind of compare the two. Like, what are you running towards? Who are you fighting for? And what is it worth if at the end the other person is not going to be able to look at you the same way or something like that? And who is who's Carol's other person? That's a whole other
herself.
thing.
I don't think she has another person. Carol's going rogue.
She has herself to be accountable to. That's it. But
you know what?
Daryl's going to be upset when he finds out that Carol hid this Negan thing from him. They talked about this in the cave.
Yep.
He said this is the final thing, right? This is and he's like, don't bullshit me. You can't bullshit, and
yeah. And again, we say all this because we are concerned. We might as well talk about this now. But I had said all throughout the season, if Carol's going to be doing this, let's say if Carol kills Alpha, which in the end she didn't, or she sort of did, which is very interesting to kind of point out. There's something in her that will not. The cost might be too high, and B, I don't know if this is going to give her what Michonne says at the end of this episode, peace.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're the sneak peek in Talking Dead. She's hearing Alpha's voice in her head now,
Mm-hmm.
even though she's long gone, or not that long gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm wondering if is this how the cost, the form of which that cost is going to take?
We've already been seeing that cost earlier in this season. Carol was having visions, right? She was having visions of Henry. And, this isn't the first time that we've kind of seen her going, like, it's not all there, right?
Right.
And then we had the callback to what was Carol's suicidal moment in the comics, where she's, in the past few episodes, where she was, the walker was, and then she was like, is it worth it? Like after she was slapped by Yumiko, and she was just, at a really low moment. So she's very fragile right now.
Right. She's on like a knife's edge in terms of where she can go right now. I think she's ultimately like I think the default state for her though is very strong. Like she's too stubborn to kill herself. Like she's too stubborn to let somebody else take her life or something else. But where does that leave you? When you can't off yourself and you can't live with yourself, like what is your life? And that's why I kind of wanted to compare it to Michonne, who goes through this hard thing that she wasn't prepared to have to go through. It's all well and good when you bow to your id, let's say. It's all well and good, because I think all of us would do that. Rachel, when you said it, I never believed it more that I would do the same thing. Like, Rachel, when you compared yourself, like, if that was my son and, et cetera, that's how I would be. And I'm like, you're right, because that's what I would be too. And I never learned it more than last Sunday. So, but that's the thing. Like, but when you see this hard lesson that Michonne is, not lesson, but like more like peek into what could have been if she would have just not bothered, and how that life could have gone a whole different way. She learns this really, really tough lesson even after the high's worn off. Like she has to actually grapple with this in real life. And how am I gonna? It does kind of bring us back to this coronavirus thing, because how are you going to react after going through this incredibly difficult financial, like, life or death potentially ordeal? Like who do you become after this moment? What do you decide to do after this moment? Are you going to go back to that daily malaise? Are you going to go back to sleepwalking, folks? And so we do see that she makes these really, really crushingly difficult decisions right after this trip. And so I like to compare it to this moment, because like I'd like to think that we would make similar decisions, but we wouldn't.
I meant to look those two up, but I didn't just yet. But who do either of you know the two actors at the end of the episode, the girl and the guy in the cowhide? They both look very familiar. I know that I have seen them both in other stuff, but I can't place their faces.
I do.
I want to say one of them is from a Netflix series.
Yes,
and
King Batch is one.
I'm not sure who the actress is.
I have it, actually.
I recognized her more than him.
Her name is Brita Wool. She was on Mr. Mercedes, but I'm sure she was in other things too. Oh, she's an actress, writer, producer, best known for roles as Lou Linklater in the audience crime drama series Mr. Mercedes, and Faith Duluth in Lifetime Hulu drama series Unreal. Her major film credits include AWOL, XX, Automatic at Sea, Erasing Eden, and Craters of the Moon.
I know her from Unreal.
Okay.
That was a great show. Was that a Hulu one? I don't know. Yeah. And she was also oh my gosh, she was on an episode of Black Mirror.
Oh, was she? Oh,
yes.
Wow. What?
She was in my favorite episode, San Junipero.
Oh.
I'm trying to remember that episode.
Okay.
What was that about again now? I'm sure.
And
she's
ladies,
on Glow? A love story.
They do. They go in like a little VR world, and that's where they like live. And then like after you die, you like stay in this little virtual world.
That was an excellent episode.
It's probably one of the best episodes.
It's one of my favorites.
It's in the top for me, like top 5, even though there's not that
I also
many.
enjoyed, right. Well, they've done more. I like the original Black Mirrors the best, like the UK ones.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Then we have Americanized it.
Well, the writer and creator is still the same guy. They just
are they
more popular actors.
They seem totally different. Like the feel, the layout, the lighting, everything feels totally different in the second 2 seasons.
Yeah, it's got they probably had an American production company too.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, she was also in Glow. Yes.
Those are the two people that you're introduced at the end of the episode. By the way, I wasn't 100% certain that was him too, because I think I don't know, like his career has gone such a interesting trajectory too. I'm not wrong. His facial features have changed. Like he's gotten more. I mean, he's gotten older. I think he started out in YouTube, right? Or no?
I think Vine. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. On Vine.
On Vine.
He was a Vine star.
Yeah, he looks like one of the kids that Silas and I watch on those React videos.
Well,
he looks like one of those kids.
Well, there you go. I mean, he's prolific too. Like I didn't know he was. I don't remember that he was on the Mindy Project.
I don't remember he was into All the Boys I've Loved Before.
House of Lies, easy.
Right.
But he was also in that horror movie with Bella Thorne that was on Netflix for a hot minute. I think as early as last Halloween, I think. But like prolific. It's like he almost never said no, but like he almost found himself in the perfect role that made him look good.
His name's not King. You liar.
No, it's Andrew. But his name is he's called King Batch.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right there. Did you want to add to what you were saying before? Like just noticing that at the end? Like those two actors?
They were familiar, and I like, how I like to keep track of details.
Okay, so there's a couple things, like the apple being a recurring theme in the show, in the episode, but it does hail back to moments that we've seen her eat an apple with Rick in the bed. I think it was like
that was one of my favorite moments. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to describe that?
Yeah, I can't remember which episode it is off the top of my head specifically, but I recognize that because I put together like an entire Rashone timeline at some point, and I was like, oh yes. So there's a morning, and I just think of it as being like one of the happiest moments of Michonne's life, where she goes, reaches out, wakes up in the morning, Rick is, next to her in bed, reaches out to this apple that's on a table, takes a bite out of it, and then she goes and feeds it to Rick, and he takes it. But she like looks at it before she bites into it, and it just seemed to really mirror exactly the moment that we see on a Sunday's episode, where Michonne also has an apple, picks it up, also looks at it like for a little bit, and then bites into it. But her mood is just completely, it's the complete opposite feeling of what she was feeling in that moment with Rick. The lighting is the complete opposite. Like it completely just contrasts to the moment of where she's completely happy with Rick. And then you see her like in this awful room, enclosed by herself. And,
captured, never lower. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like the in-between of that being the moment where Negan saves her, like as she's injured and trying to, the backpack guy that survives. And then you see that moment where he tosses, or Laura is the one who tosses her the apple. And then and she also again is looking at it like, what the this is so it's like an in between, like not the best, but I'm not dead, so But
I was so happy to see Lindsley again too.
I was too.
Oh, and Matt Mangum, I think it is.
And Matt Mangum, yeah.
Yes, DJ.
DJ was there too.
That's right, DJ. And another couple of like saviors that we hadn't seen in a long while. And I can't remember. It's Tracy. Can't remember his name. Oh, this is gonna eat me up inside because I did an acting class with him when we went to Camp Merrimack. And we were just hilarious because I would say things that would just set him off.
I would have liked to have seen Fat Joey back. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
That would have been a really interesting choice because would Daryl have run across him yet? I don't know.
I don't think Fat Joey was the savior who was ever really allowed out on the road because I felt like he was their Eugene, right?
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
It would have been funny because he like had such a like surprisingly big following. Like people loved Fat Joey.
People were upset when he was killed. Yeah.
Fat Joey deserved better. Hashtag. Right. Can you imagine like out of context? So
I don't know about you guys, but so when Michonne was locked in that room and the food was in there and the people on the other side are telling her like to eat and stuff, like my first thought was, don't listen to these people. Like, they're in on it. Whatever is going on, they're in on it. They want you to eat that food. Don't eat it.
They had to know, though, right, that she was going to be drugged? Because did Virgil not drug them at some point as well?
Nope.
Right.
Because here's the thing. He gave that to her as a gift, as a thank you. That was his way of thanking her.
He did think it was going to have a positive effect on her, I guess, as it did to him, right?
This is and that's the thing. Like, I think he really did want to thank her for the thing that he just did. This thing that he couldn't do and nobody else could do. And like the thing, and that's one of the questions I ask at the beginning of the show is like, had Michonne remained patient, do you think Virgil would have kept his promise?
Well, I guess I'm not really sure how that was all going to play out. Like, what was the plan here? How was he going to explain how he had these people locked away? Like, what was the actual game plan here?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. You know,
anybody? I'm not sure how that was going to work out in his favor ever.
The one thing I will say is I think he always planned to give her this gift in exchange. I think it's just when and where. Like, would it be behind bars? Did he drop the hint that the lab did he drop the hint that the lab was, overrun by wild animals and structurally not sound? Did he do that so that he knew she would go into there? Because the way he said it was pretty suspiciously, like a little unsubtly suspiciously. I'm not saying yes or no, but I'm saying it does make you think. Because there's a part of you that kind of wants to dismiss Virgil offhand the way Michonne does, right? Because her visual annoyance, you're on her side. It's like you said, you want to follow your protagonist. But that's an opportunity for me to kind of go, hold on a minute. Like, as much as like at the end of the end result actually is that Virgil is like a little out of it, right? Anyway. So who knows how that would have gone down. And again, it serves to remind everybody that, like, had it not gone down the way that it did go down, we don't know if she would have gotten to the Rick clues. And so it almost doesn't matter, but at the same time, and this is the only reason why I asked this question, I am a hardcore Kevin T. Carroll fan. Like, not because of this episode, but I've said it before, from like the moment we heard it in San Diego Comic-Con. And I'm biting my lip and going, when are we going to see Kevin T. Carroll? When is it going to happen? And I even ask at the end of my notes, like, are we going to see him again? Are we ever going to see him again? Is this happening? Can we do this again sometime?
Well, it seems a little anticlimactic, don't you think? I mean, for this Virgil role, they could have cast somebody maybe a little less well-known. I mean, if you have a name like that, I would expect his character to be around a little bit longer. I think we'll see him again.
Like Samantha Morton, Ryan Hurst, Kevin T. Carroll. Like, I was losing my mind the day of. Losing my fucking mind. I am not going to be embarrassed. I'm not ashamed. He's incredible. I got to see a lot of him. What's that?
Are you a big Leftovers fan?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's Leftovers. Yeah, what was the one with Marshall Ali? I can't remember. Moonlight.
Oh,
excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, he was incredible. And of course, and I don't know why this is the first time I ever saw. Well, no, it was the second time I ever saw him, but it was Castle Rock.
Yeah,
awesome.
That was where I saw him.
Awesome. Anyway, so yeah, I was so excited to see him, and then like, oh, he's in 2 episodes. Goodbye. Look, okay.
Right.
I'm a Virgil apologist. I'm saying this out loud. Like, I am going to question everything when it comes to this character because he's like, and I'm gonna like pull a dispatches from elsewhere, because I've been watching it and it's fucking awesome.
Really?
Virgil is you. Virgil is literally you.
Oh God. If you are.
Yeah, if you are somebody
trapped on an island.
Yeah, trapped on an island with others. Fell from a magical plane.
Oh my God.
No, and you didn't have the experience, which we've seen, and it's annoying, but they exist. They don't usually survive, but here we are. The gang has learned mercy and how to let them survive and let them flourish, and so here we are. Virgil's still alive. I wonder if we will get to see him again. Because at the end, you're almost kind of wondering what Michonne is wondering is like, how far deep is Virgil when it comes to these Rick discoveries? Did they wash up? Was he on the boat?
Mm-hmm.
You know, did he aboard it? Where did those people go? Who picked them up? You know, where did they go? Why did that ship wash ashore? For what reason? Did something let it sweep away? Was it the storm that was in Fear the Walking Dead season 4? I don't know.
Also, wait, there was a moment on the episode, and I keep forgetting to like watch this moment more closely when I rewatch. But you know, I've seen other people ask, was it Virgil that set the boat on fire?
Yeah.
I assume
the
it was.
boat that they came in on?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's what I just assume. But I think some people weren't sure because it seemed like Michonne had just stabbed him and then they ran out and then the boat was on fire. But maybe he set it on fire right before he went to go and see her.
Right. And you know what? That's why I wanted, that actually reinforces the question I asked before, which was like, did Virgil intend to let Michonne go? And he does kind of say near the end, and believing what he says is difficult, but he said, like, I wanted to let you go. Oh, I wanted to let them go, but I wanted to keep you around so that they wouldn't kill me. And like, so she was like, okay, I have you. I don't need them anymore. I can let them go. I trust you. I sort of trust you. I thanked you for the medicine. I think we're on good footing. But so like, he was banking on her not killing him after the medicine because he thought mistakenly that it would give her peace and like heaven, essentially. And she'd be okay with the world.
Let go of her family?
I don't think he expected. Yeah, I don't think he expected, because his Mirror Darkly is a world in which they survived. You know, her Mirror Darkly is where they didn't. So like, you know, it seems to be opposite world when you take this thing. Which, what is this thing? Jimson weed. What is Jimson weed's other name or variations of that name? The Devil's Snare. And little factoids you learn along the way. Hilarious note, the British soldiers who were trying to put down the Bacon Rebellion in Jamestown, Virginia, by the way, where they found the Jimson weed, because that's why it's called Jimson. It's named after Jamestown, Virginia. There are like hilarious accounts of British soldiers making absolute fools of themselves on this thing. Highly toxic, by the way, in case you get big ideas. So if you don't know what you're doing, you could literally kill yourself. So many OD'd on this shit. So, little factoid, little Virginia-specific factoid for you. That you may not have known about. The Devil's Snare. He's got you.
Right. Well, I think we'll definitely see Virgil again. Like I said, you don't bring in like that and only use him in 2 episodes. Maybe we'll see him in the movies. Who knows? The whole episode, he reminded me of where Morgan was at mentally when he was clearing his place out. I mean, the way, you know, Michonne would talk to him and there was just absolutely nothing coming back. I even like jotted down a few times, like she would ask him a question and he would just start talking and like as if she didn't even ask him a question. And like you were saying, like her facial expressions, like how irritated she was getting was kind of cracking me up. It was hilarious because I was getting equally annoyed with him. But
her one-line responses, like her one-liners.
Yeah. He just wasn't there mentally. So, you know, I think we may see him again. Hopefully, maybe in a similar fashion that Morgan pops back up. You know, hey guys, my head's clear now. I'm good. Maybe I can be an ally to you. So,
speaking of Morgan, when Michonne's kind of delivering her verdict on Virgil, I'll get into the specifics later, or like in a few, but specifically when she says Mercy, when she's going on about Mercy, it was right after that scene. She's in the cell with Virgil, and he goes, I don't know who I am without them, etc., etc. And there was something that was reminiscent about what Morgan says right at the end of season 5, and he goes, just live. And there was just this beautiful like tie-in where, you know, Morgan's reaching out to a scene, like, if you can hear me, kind of like at the end of season 4 too, if anybody can hear me, if you can find them, A-team. But he goes to his team one last time and goes, instead of helping others, he's trying to help his friends and says, just live. And it was this weird moment where like I felt like even we were kind of poking at Morgan themes, like with the clear ID, with Morgan going clear here and there throughout this episode. I just figured that was a nice little nod to him right at the end. It's kind of beautiful.
I mean, that's just one of those things about how many little Easter eggs there are That's why like it took me forever just to go through this montage. I don't know how many times I like rewatched it because you're just like you think of all of these things.
Oh yeah, and so many GIFable moments. Or people say GIFs, people say GIF. I say GIF.
I'm a hard G. It's okay.
So many GIFable moments though. Like to be honest, like every scene where like somebody says Michonne and it kind of reverberates their head. Like oh that could be my avatar right there. Done. Like Rick about to shoot Morgan. Oh my god, Michonne, and then like that echo just right beforehand. It's just ooh, I get chills a little bit.
Speaking of that moment, I didn't realize for a while because it was bothering me. I was like, is that season 2, episode 7, where, you know, he's shooting Sophia? And then I was like, no, that's not how his hair looked. And that's not how his beard looked. And then other people are like, no, Kirsten, like they just did the VFX. Like they just like added hair in the beard to that season 2 shot. And I was like, oh, wow. Like they really just went
quite
for
literally.
it there. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
They added the wet curly hair in the back, you know, the kind we fell in love with.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll never forget that scene too.
Well, also Michonne didn't know him back then, so she wouldn't have, you know.
Which says
she remembers him with the curly hair,
right? Which is to say, it's exactly like you said. She didn't know him in that moment, and she literally didn't know him in that moment, like in that specific, like sliding doors moment. So that's really interesting. And I'll never forget that shot too, because like the moments before that Sophia shot too, by the way, like the first shot before you see the barrel of the gun point of view, there was almost as a kind of like, almost like unforgiving face that he makes. There's almost like a mean look to his face, like, I'm so pissed that we found you like this. Not like in an angry way, but like in a, what was all this for?
I think it's also like because Shane originally wanted them to go into the barn and to kill, and he's like, I can't believe I have to go and do this now.
Right.
You know, should I listen to Shane? Like, oh, you know.
Could have
could
have also partially felt responsible for finding her that way. I mean, I know a lot of people blame Rick for Sophia's death in general, so finding her dead would be devastating for him. And now here he made this mistake, and now he has to put her down.
Yeah, like, and then like the people that say Shane didn't do anything wrong are like, yes, Shane was right. And then he's like, all right, I gotta kill this. Yeah, it's tough.
But even if they had gone in there when Shane said to, would they have found Sophia right away? Would it have changed anything? Maybe, maybe they were there for at least a few days. I mean, maybe a week. I mean, we could say, right, before the fire broke out. And they were, I would imagine, still gathering up walkers in the meantime. If they had gone in there on day 1 and she wasn't there, they would have found her out in the woods someplace, or who knows.
That's a good point. I mean, it's kind of like we were saying earlier, like I always do like to revisit these scenes and figure out, knowing what we know now and how people evolved, and looking back and like, of course, hindsight's fucking 2020. But like at the time when you're just trying to figure all this out, there's something exciting about not knowing, and you do have to take that into account when you look back. And now when we look at Virgil, do we see him the same way? Maybe, considering that scene, he hasn't had to deal with this shit. To him, he just lost his family after 10 years in the apocalypse. So
good for him being able to hold on to his family.
I think he recognizes that too. Yeah. We were the lucky ones. So, like the people that poured in weren't.
Did all of that happen to Virgil recently? I guess I didn't really get a good idea of how long they had been like that. The other people trapped in the road were like, oh, we've been in here since then. But since when? Like, are we talking a few weeks, a few months, since the beginning of the apocalypse? What? Right.
It doesn't feel like it's super long, because I don't think that I feel like
the others,
the
right?
guy's hair would have been longer. Yeah, the others, right? I feel like they just would have looked more ragged.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it seemed as though they had enough sense to not make him angry, but I don't think it was that long a time where, like, okay, consider his family. When he finally finds them, they're hanging from the rafters. And so what does that say about people on this island that they could potentially do. Like if these guys were captured by Crazy Virgil, who was their friend, would they have done the same thing? You know, and given enough time, they may have.
I also think that it's interesting, and I'm probably going to have to revisit this whole other side plot at some point because there's so much other stuff going on in the episode. I think Angela's very good at this, at putting little things, little teases in episodes for you to revisit upon a second, a third watch later on down the road, especially with the whole Dante reveal. If you go back to other episodes, you start to see the clues, right? So I feel like they mentioned very briefly about how they allowed this other group to come on and they like turned. I wonder if this other group of people, if they are supposed to be a tie-in to the movie or to the CRM at large, or some other, part of the larger Walking Dead universe.
Are you talking about?
I was getting the feeling that we would know who this group was. Like,
are you talking about the others in the cell, or
the other others that we don't know
in the sort of caravan sort of scene?
Neither.
The people who showed up to the island and basically, so the good people on the island were there.
Sorry.
Mystery people floated up.
Right.
They welcomed them in, and then all of a sudden they turned bad.
They had a Thanksgiving. Yeah,
I bet that's a group that we've seen before. I kind of got that feeling.
Could be.
I was actually going to ask that question next, like with what, because I mean, it goes to Virgil's lack, quote unquote, of authenticity, where it's like, do you kind of believe him when he's saying, I could point you to shells. He says we, and then he says I, because there's nobody left. Because we've seen CRM Group in Fear the Walking Dead pick places for exactly what they want in targeted operations in the dead of night when the conditions are right for them, and then get the fuck out. And then they get what they want in spite of the costs, because we do see that the reactor starts to melt down. So we get an idea of who these people are, whether they give a shit about the costs, and when they get what they want. And there could be another example here. Do they go in? Do they see? Is Virgil right when he says, I've seen a shell or two. I've seen where there may be things that indicate there is artillery, but it's possible that they came in the dead of night, caused a condition that may have, because like I said, they were starving, but they may have caused a condition to where they could eliminate most of the island, come in, pick it clean, jump out, done. So I do wonder about that. But also, like, okay, why don't we go to the meat of like what could be? And that is the telltale etching of Judith and Michonne on this iPhone, probably an iPhone 3. Let's be time.
I figured that it was just a regular 2007 iPhone, right? Because someone was arguing about this on Twitter, and I was like, in the grand scheme of things, is this the molehill to die on? It doesn't matter. Like, there was definitely cell phones around in 2010. Why are we arguing this?
Exactly. Right. There's no need to argue.
She didn't turn it on or make a call. So
exactly.
Yeah, the end point is not. Yeah, that's not the end point, right? But yeah.
And is that not what we would eventually use those devices for, is to like draw on? Because that's all it would be good for anyway, right?
That, or like
at that point.
Yeah, basically. Or like hammering nails or something like that. Who knows? But
no, it would break. That wouldn't even, you couldn't even use it as a hammer.
I was being facetious. But yeah, it goes to what this etching is about. Who did it? How would they know? And this is the big question that people are asking. And we've had time to think about it. And maybe we can come somewhere to where, because a lot of people are saying, oh, this is Anne trying out her Japanese writing and her etching skills. And I want to get your ideas on this first, though, because there's so many ways of interpreting why Judith looks the way she does in this photo. Why don't you give us a little something, Kirsten?
Yeah, so I've thought about this a lot, and I'll walk you through my progression of what my initial thoughts were, and then how I decided that was totally wrong.
We all have that moment. Yeah.
Well, because originally, when I'm watching these episodes on Wednesday, the only person I really have to talk about these feelings with are myself, or I'll message Brandon over at Comic Book, and we'll just toss around our thoughts on
with his cynical take.
Right,
Usually.
and so then I'm like, well, that doesn't help.
That's not helpful.
So
at me, Brandon.
No, love Brandon.
I do too.
No, I had said to him, I was like, hey, I'm going to try and find out what the message says. And because he was like, I don't, I knew he wasn't going to know the Japanese characters. Love Brandon, but I was like, I'm going to just figure it out. And he was like, all right. So all the power to you. So when I found that out, I found that it was believe a little bit longer. So initially my thought process was, wow. And let me just preface this with, I figured that Michonne having some sort of art background, because I believe that I thought that she had sold art or was like a dealer or something. And I don't remember if that's something that we learned from the Telltale games or where I'm pulling that in from.
That's a tough one, right? Because in the show, she was a lawyer.
And in the comic, she's a lawyer. So maybe I'm off with the art thought. So maybe get rid of that. But I was also thinking about the swords and how they were referring to them as, Daito and then Shoto. So I knew that there was that Japanese, at least like, connection there with Michonne. So I thought maybe she knew Japanese. And so then I thought that maybe she taught Rick some Japanese like characters, right? And I know that this is all wrong now, but I just want to lay out my thought process. I thought that Rick initially not that I thought he drew this out. I thought Anne drew it out because I thought that it was established that Rick probably couldn't draw at some point. And but the etching of his name looked like it was signed by him, because I could have sworn, and correct me if I'm wrong, I could have sworn that we've seen Rick write his name like that somewhere on the series. I don't remember where. I did not have time to go through all 10 seasons before, in a span of a few days. Then that completely went out the window after I saw, I think Angela Kang, she confirmed to EW that the message was not written by Rick and that it was a message to Rick from somebody somehow on this boat. So my thought process now is that because Judith does look older in this image, right? She looks like current Judith. So I think that someone, let's say the CRM, is holding Rick hostage or something, and they are letting Rick know that like Judith and Michonne is alive. Like that phone was a message to Rick, and the message being translated to believe a little bit longer. So I feel like someone's holding Rick hostage, believe a little bit longer, and then we'll let you go and be with your family again. And so I don't even know if Rick wrote Rick on the phone or if someone else just wrote Rick to him. Why is it written in Japanese? I don't know. Can Rick even read Japanese? I have no idea. But I think that this was nothing that had anything to do with Michonne. She just happened to, I think, find it. But I think that it's a hint that Rick is being held captive by someone, but who's also giving him hints or letting him know that like his family is alive and okay, and that there's a larger purpose for him to be doing whatever he's doing right now, and that whatever's keeping him away from his family.
No, that was pretty much where I was at. And to be totally honest, my thought process kind of changed right now in this moment as you were talking. I thought it would be weird that Rick would write his own name on a phone. So I did kind of think it was a message for him. Like, why would he write his own name? So, and then obviously Judith looks a little bit older. So it was somebody who was observing them more recently. Now the idea that he's being held hostage, I mean, I always kind of thought, obviously he's someplace and there's a reason he's not trying to get back to his family. There has to be a reason. Either, I don't know. I could come up with 100 different scenarios why they're holding him there. But if they're holding him, the more you said that, holding him hostage, and then giving him this hope, it might not even be hope. I mean, that could almost be a torture tactic in itself. Believe a little bit longer. Believe that we are watching your family, and if you don't comply, we can hurt them.
Yeah, I would say
that was another thought.
Here's what they look like. Yeah.
And he has to believe that too.
Like this came into my head.
Yeah.
So.
I'm glad though that you brought up, maybe he's not even like being held, maybe hostage isn't the right word. I don't know if it's just like a held against their will, but the only reason why I thought of that was because of the boots being left behind. And Scott Gimple made a point on Talking Dead afterwards that both Andy Lincoln, Grimes would not leave behind his boots unless it was like completely necessary. So I don't know if he was leaving the boots behind because he knew that could be a clue, and he knew that that would be in case someone found them, or if he was forced to take them off for some other reason.
Right.
And the fact that they were placed on a shelf, not just tossed someplace, haphazardly, like they were set on a shelf.
Well, they were still
now, phone was
fairly good condition. I mean, really.
I mean, considering, yeah. But I mean, the cell phone was on a table, right? The cell phone was on a table underneath a bunch of other stuff. The boots were on a shelf, put away in a closet someplace. So,
right. The more you guys talk, the more I'm kind of narrowing down how I feel about this. I mean, I do agree mostly with you guys when it comes to, like, I think it is a picture to show Rick. I'm not 100% sure that whether it's Rick that has seen them grow, has seen Michonne and Judith grow, mostly Judith. But I do want to go to just a more, something else that you guys haven't said, which is like, we've seen how they operate in Fear the Walking Dead. They go in, they go out, and the thing about Althea burying that tape goes to the sensitive nature that these guys are trying to keep up this place because they are vulnerable. As she says, Althea, the idea is vulnerable. If other people from the outside knew about it, it would all be over, at least in the time that they were in currently, which is like 5 years in the past, just about. 5, probably a little extra. Probably a little extra. Who knows how they are 6 years from then? Like 6 years, they may be a lot stronger. We don't know. But that alone might be the thing that gets him not to go out, because Rick, you're talking about Rick motherfucking Grimes. And this is something people forget completely. People are so wrapped up in the drama of it's my family, Michonne and Judith, they forget that Rick, it clings to these moral high grounds, if you want to call it that. Where we last left him was doing this thing for the greater good to pull all the communities together and live as one in a peaceful kind of society with rules which we broke down in our blog of what almost all the Charter for Rights and Freedoms were. Like things about like the right to leave a community to go to another or to go on their own. We wish people luck, that sort of thing. You get to this height, and then all of a sudden we lose him, and that's where he's at currently. So when you take him to this idealistic or this advanced society where on the one hand they've done so much to keep their society stable, but they also have this proviso that, first of all, the qualifications A or B, and that's a whole other mess that we're probably getting into some other time. But going back to even simpler brass tacks, if it is the CRM group, who knows? First of all, because that's a tough one. It is, because as we learn about the civic Republic military? Yes. I don't know what it is. I've got a block. I can't seem to get it in my head.
I would say the image on that cell phone could potentially be up to 4 or 5 years old, because RJ's not on it.
Right.
I was wondering that too, but maybe they want to keep that info from Rick, because maybe Rick would, if he knew that he had a son, if he knew that he had a child with Michonne, another child, like, don't you think Rick would go full Ricktatorship?
True.
And be like,
until we understand the motivations for what this is. Yeah. Right. We don't know what its purpose is, but RJ was not on there. So
yeah. I mean, and to finish my thought, it's just really this is where we left him, ideologically speaking. And if Althea herself were to give him that pitch, we don't know time-wise where we are, but it would be enough for him to be like, it would gnaw at him, but I think he'd know that for the greater good, like he wouldn't reach out for fear of this entire society to be lost, potentially, just to reach out to his kids. That would be enough for him to not do it. And then now, what are the conditions that make it possible so that Michonne could reach him? This could be it. This could be the moment.
So that whole like trail of thing like made me feel kind of like it made me think of Virginia and her whole group.
You're not the only one. Yeah, you're not the first one who said that. Because where we left off with Fear the Walking Dead and CRM and who knows whom, and because of the way they're dressed in cow skins, it does make you think. It makes you think.
Yeah.
Could this be Ginny's gang? Could they have gotten to the pinnacle of something bigger? I mean, I think I seem to recall Gimple saying there are 3 distinct communities by the end of this, or by the time we catch up to real time.
Yeah, because it's 3 circles, right? For
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
CRM. So I imagine that each one is its own community.
Right. With their different styles, I imagine, too. What they do or produce or
Yeah.
how they run things.
Yeah.
Yeah, this might be faction.
Yeah. I know the main one that I think they mentioned the main was in and around near Omaha. I'm trying to remember exactly. Because we know the one is leaning more towards the Philly, Camden, Jersey-ish area.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Ginny's group, which is out in the southwest. Maybe? Or unless they do a wagon trail all the way northbound. But we do know that I think we know that the group that we follow in World Beyond is in and around Nebraska, it sounds like. Something like that. Maybe?
Is it?
I think so.
I don't think I've heard anything.
That would be funny, since that goes back to like, I think season 2 of The Walking Dead.
Dave?
Nebraska.
Yeah. Who,
That
by the
would be
way,
really funny.
I love that actor
That would
drop
be
because
funny.
that actor, he was with Donald Logue in a show called Terriers, which I can't believe I haven't brought that up before. Because I bring it up online, but I never brought it up on the show. Donald Logue and this guy
same guy. Yeah.
had a show called Terriers. Awesome show that got canceled before. It's like 2 seasons and it just fittered out. Excellent show. If you get to watch it, if you could find it somewhere, watch it. It's excellent. Michael Raymond James. Boom. That's Dave from Nebraska or whatever.
Yeah, that's the one from True Blood.
Oh, okay.
That's how, yeah. He played this character named Renee
Yes.
on True Blood. Yep.
That's the guy. Every time I see him, I refer to him as the guy that should have been a Wahlberg.
Like the Wahlberg cousin.
Yeah. I mean, for real, he has the Wahlberg face. Like, he could have been a Wahlberg, for sure.
Oh,
Yes.
boy.
Yes.
God
Yep,
damn.
that's the face.
He's
I
like
didn't have a name, but that's the face. Thank you.
he's like if Marky Mark ever aged and lost his figure. I don't know.
Right? Marky Mark does not age. Oh my
He doesn't
gosh.
age, it doesn't lose his
No.
figure. Just only looked hotter. Okay.
There, how's
ready?
that?
And we meet. Okay, content that will be edited out.
Oh my god.
We did that
Oh,
for
this
nothing. So when Judith is talking to Michonne, by the way, there's a point at which she's telling her what's happening. Judith's telling Michonne what's happening, and everything she says is true. However, she's not telling Michonne everything. I don't think.
No.
I think she's just trying to get her not to worry. And I kind of wanted to get your pulse on what I'm thinking because, like, she's good at it. She's good at hiding the truth lately.
I froze real quick when Michonne asked her the question, is anything up with the whispers? And then there was that pause, and I went, what are you going to say, kid? What are you going to say? And then it just went through. I'm like, oh,
Everything's
okay.
fine.
All right.
We beat them, Mom.
Yep.
Like, say something that's out of this world true. Like, we got him, Mom. What did she get?
It's like she considered very carefully how to choose her words, right? And it's
Right.
like, well, Alpha can't hurt us. I don't.
Anymore.
Yeah, but Beta maybe is still out there, and
Right.
Still a ton of whispers left over.
So when she said that, did you think the same thing I did? When she said Alpha can't hurt us anymore, I thought, oh, okay, so Carol and or Negan have returned with her head. Like, they now know Alpha's dead. Or do you think it was just wishful thinking that Judith was saying that?
That's a good point. Like, how far in the future are we, too? And do we go backwards a little bit for her to know that?
I feel like she's being honest. I feel like Sunday's episode will probably explore 1014. Will probably explore, Carol. I'm hoping that it's going to explore more of like the deal that went on with Carol and Negan, and then explaining what happened, because there are photos that are available of Daryl at least coming into contact with Negan, and it looks like his hands are tied. It looks like they're bringing him back to somewhere. I don't know if it's Alexandria or elsewhere. So, and if that is the case, then Judith is probably aware of something.
Yeah, this is the perfect opportunity to go into sneak peeks for her, if only maybe to finish out the show, but like, so we are talking, and the reason why it's important is because we see Judith at a point at which she knows that Alpha's taken out, so we don't know at what point we are at the end of this episode, but we do know that when we start off the next episode, we see that Carol's putting Alpha's head on a pike at the border.
Yes.
Negan goes, "It's done." Beta and some other two whispers discover Alpha's head. Carol, "I'm not going back," which is like the third time we've seen her self-isolate, which I mentioned before. Prison Kingdom and now.
Who did she say that to?
She says it to Negan. In response to him saying, "I held up my end, now hold up yours." So something's going on here.
If Negan is counting on Carol to like schmooze his way back into the community, yeah, that ain't happening.
Right.
She does not have much credit right now.
Yeah.
He's better off just walking in going, "I surrender." He'd have a better chance that way than walking in with her.
Which makes you think what the ask is after Aaron finds him going after Lydia and all that stuff. And with a whisper mask on and the whole because if she can't come back and vouch for him, he's dead meat.
And Lydia's not going to vouch for him. The only thing she knows is he tied me to a chair and left me.
And we do discover in the sneak peeks that he's going to the shack where he left her. She's untied, but Daryl's in Lydia's place, hitting him over the head with a crossbow. Again, which is weird because we haven't seen him with a crossbow in forever. This episode notwithstanding, by the way.
I was going to say, except for this episode.
Yeah, so...
It has been a while. Now that you mention that.
Daryl always seems to get whatever he needs to have, regardless of whether or not it makes sense, right?
Rocket launcher,
The rocket... he gets
RPG,
exactly what he needs to fulfill whatever arc he needs to in an episode. So, come on, he should have bled out a few episodes ago from that stab in the leg, right?
Yeah.
But, he's Daryl. So if Daryl wants to have his crossbow back, that's fine. If Daryl wants to ride his motorcycle, even though he probably shouldn't have any sort of gasoline to drive it around, whatever.
Yeah. Whatever methanol or ethanol supply was left, sure. Okay. Daryl's got moonshine up the wazoo, literally. I can only conclude by just the shape of just these few, because there's still a little bit more. We're talking about a Judith who's perhaps seen this to the end. I'm thinking it makes more sense that she would do that. She would say that at the end of this because knowing that Alpha's gone means that it's got to be after this episode or somewhere in between this episode, and they're not going to replay that scene again in the next episode. So
I hope they do like a little. I like when they do that, just so we can so we have a better idea of how. Yeah, well, so that we have a better idea of how these timelines are adding up. Even if we just see Judith in the background somewhere on a radio, making reference to the fact that this was happening while she was talking to Michonne, that would just be cool.
Well,
that's all.
take it even further. What if this is technically time-wise the season finale? What if this is the gap? This is the end, and then the rest of it is catching up to Michonne because she's been out for who knows how long. I guess because even the first day, she's you were out for for more than a day, and so we don't know how long she's been tripping there. And when she was tripping, the guys were saying we've been trying to call out to you for days, something like that.
I think they just said she was out for a day.
Well, the first time
they said we've been trying to talk to you.
Oh,
and she said, "How long have I been out?" About a day.
I wish they'd written. Because I feel like they were trying to talk to her between her trips, with Virgil, but I don't know how long she was out. Because I read a little fact about the Jimson weed, a little bit more, and they were saying that these hallucinations would last for days.
Oh, interesting.
Oh,
and
wow.
So,
just from one dose?
Because the doses that they were producing were just so potent and toxic, by the way, which... almost explains Virgil's behavior. I mean...
how much has he had?
Right, and how much permanent damage and stunted damage has he done to himself? So...
Right. Virgil made a comment later on when Michonne kind of pushes him down and she's about to kill him. And he even makes reference to the fact that his wife was his compass. And ever since she was gone, he didn't really know what to do. Locking those people up. And he's I didn't want to kill him, but I couldn't let him leave either. So this was the only thing I could think to do. You almost feel bad for him in that moment. Someone who just doesn't see right and wrong. he knows what needs to be done and just does it. And then he's going, did I do it wrong? I didn't know what else to do.
I'm glad you brought that up because that also made me think of some of the other moral compasses in Michonne's life or Rick's life in the past. And those are people who we saw in this episode, not only Sadiq, right? And we talked a lot about him, but then Glenn, who was very much a moral compass for Rick. And I would even say, I think that it's interesting that they showed Heath again, which I've always been a big proponent of, like, where is Heath and all of that.
Hashtag.
Yeah.
Well, we now know, because this was something Angela had said to me way back. We know that he was sent off by Anne, and the helicopter people took him away somewhere. So
that's confirmed.
Fun fact. Yeah, that's something that Angela told me.
Wow.
It was like a while back. Yeah, it was like
Okay.
2018 or 2019.
And one of them left a key card.
Yeah, we don't know anything about PPP. I have no idea what's up with that still. But that was why Anne Jadis had the Winnebago, the RV, in 905.
Yes.
Whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had asked her, are we supposed to infer, because if you go back to season 7, I'm just going on a slight tangent, you can see that she has the Winnebago in like season 7 in her junkyard.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So anyway, that was what was supposed to be inferred. But I thought that it was interesting that they showed Heath again, because he was the one person who kind of like stood up to Rick and was like, I don't think I really like believe in, or was it Rick, or he was just like talking to maybe Glenn or someone in the RV the last time that we saw him.
Tara?
No, Tara. Thank you.
Tara.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was saying that he really didn't believe in everything that the group was doing, and he kind of went off on his own. So I kind of saw it interesting that, you know, they showed him and Glenn again. When you have Glenn, who was someone who was the moral compass, and then Heath, who was someone who was just like, bye.
Bye, bitch. Yo, these folks are crazy. Can you take me?
Right.
Like
I'm an A.
The worst Uber ever. but it's funny they mentioned Tara, like, because Tara brings this up herself when they reach they were in Alexandria, but she brings this up in the church when Rick has his big speech about these guys gotta go. And she pleads with Morgan after Rick leaves, and she goes, I just left the governor for this. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it brings you back to Heath and the satellite station. It's like, whoa, this was the moment where they went too far, or arguably too far in retrospect.
or too far gone. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to see Heath's face again. I mean, I feel like that's almost like a primer.
I mean, why bother showing Corey Hawkins? They could have just showed Glenn. I know that they're reusing that footage, but I thought that they're selecting what footage to show. They didn't need to show that at all.
Yeah. And of course you're going to show Glenn again because Glenn. Oh. And maybe also to kind of not make up for, because I never really cared about this, but I know that the original idea was to bring back Glenn for Rick's dream sequence. But like maybe to kind of be like, if we're going to go back in time and show somebody, let's show him a little later. And so this was definitely a way better placement. Like if you had to choose between seeing Glenn in 905, or 905 was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or seeing him here, it makes way more sense to see him here. And Sasha Williams being the heart and the idea of sacrifice. Because Glenn is in a sense is the opposite. Like if you see this episode, you see this is when Glenn decided to put down his moral compass and do the dirty. And then he got it for it too, the one time. So, and it's hard, right? You're upset. You're looking at this like you're thinking about it all over again. You see the scene all over again.
Well, I think it's just been important, and I didn't write about it for this past week because I wrote about it literally the week before, but that isn't the first time that the show this season has revisited the controversial season 6 finale, season 7 premiere. And I feel like they're almost trying to do this do-over where they're saying like, sorry, we know that we did wrong. We know that we drove a majority of the fan base away. Right. And we're trying to, I don't know if this is like revisionist history, but it's also like, it's almost like this has been a slow burn for the Negan redemption arc where it's like, well, Denai's gone, Andy's gone. We know Daryl's still here. but also Negan is still here, and we need you
Right.
to like him, right?
Right.
So,
And this is a big question that we asked like before, and like, so what happens after this moment? You know, where does Negan go? And we all kind of concluded that, okay, cash cow Dean Morgan is not going to leave the show. You know, it's just not going to happen. And I was almost begrudgingly so, because it was kind of like, because I'm a slave to story. Like, so it doesn't matter who you are. If Daryl's got to die to serve the story's purpose, Daryl's got to die. I'm savage when it comes to that. Like, if it makes sense, do it. Because the thing is, The Walking Dead, at least in the past, because Andrea, has never been afraid of getting rid of main characters. Not really. You know, like, if it means Dale has to go for whatever reason, however complicated, he's got to go. And so, or if Carol stays just because it makes sense. Like, oh, why would she off herself? We have so much potential to do something else. She stays. You know, so that's the only reason why I wonder. You know, where is it his exit? Is it not his exit? What can they possibly do with this character to where people can swallow it?
we're at an interesting crossroads because if you know the comics, you know after this, Negan just disappears. He just goes off on his own and lives on a farm for like the rest of his life or something, you know?
Or something.
Here's what I would like to see, okay? Because I am proud. I would probably be one of the bigger Negan haters, honestly. Like, what he did to Glenn is unforgivable. Even though I knew it was coming, I'm not mad about it, but I am mad about it.
Right.
Not mad at the writers. How about that? Mad at Negan.
Forget.
Right. Now, can he be redeemed? I mean, I'd like to believe that everybody has that quality, right? Even Negan.
Shit.
Even his actions were not good, but his intentions were there, right? He was trying to save people, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So what I would like to see is somehow, and maybe they'll do this when Maggie comes back. Maybe something can happen between him and Maggie that will make everybody feel a little bit better. No, not that.
Not the thing that I said.
Not
that was outrageous.
Not the outrageous thing, but just some sort of interaction. I don't know. You know, a genuine, heartfelt apology, some sort of grand gesture. I don't know. I don't know. But maybe some sort of interaction between Negan and Maggie can help me, at least as a Glenn fan, start to see Negan as an ally rather than someone I need to keep a side eye on.
Yeah. Well, actually, so while you were talking about that, I was actually thinking about something that you kind of said, Kirsten, which is like, it goes back to kind of Virgil being held up by Michonne's knife, like just at the end, and kind of, you know, and then Virgil's kind of pleading for his life. I wanted to, you know, take you out first so that, you know, you could prevent them from killing me, and, you know, it's just all messed up, and I was going to let you go, and saying how he didn't know what to do, and the knife's at his throat, and Michonne's like, just like desperate to plunge, and then she gives her whole mercy speech, and then I was just thinking to myself, oh my God, this is just another thing that we need to be prepped for when it comes to how we see Negan.
We also, though,
You
we've
know?
kind of seen, and we've also seen that kind of play out, though, already with Maggie and Negan, right? Because she went down to his cell to go and kill him, and that's also kind of like a scene that they took from later in the comics to bring to life earlier on the show, because they weren't sure if Lauren Cohn was probably going to come back at the time, and I think that she says, I'm just paraphrasing, but she was like, nah, I already see that, like, you're rotting away, and this is like better for me. Like, it's not going to give me peace, basically, if I kill you right now. So that's another ongoing theme. Like the mercy, my mercy prevails over my wrath. That's like the giant theme ever since, you know, the end of season 8.
Right. And we haven't seen much of that since like the beginning of season 9. We see bits of it with Mary a little bit, kind of with Aaron as kind of like this weird shadow of Rick. But yeah, I haven't seen any, which is good, because then when it finally comes back to us, we kind of, you know, our hearts start tearing up, and we see Michonne. I mean, you see, and I was telling you this, Kirsten, before. I was like, you see like Kevin T. Carroll taking that acting choice and just grabbing onto Michonne's arm, like, you know, gently grabbing on, saying, I don't know what to do here. I'm pleading for my life here. And it was just this, when he does that, and it lingers there on his hand, on her arm for just a sec. I just suddenly just like whoosh, just like a wave of like sorrow just flew over me. I'm like, oh, we're here again. They're like, may my mercy prevail over my wrath. And then she's staring him down, and she's doing the calculus. She's doing the math. She's like, we've been here before. Rick's been here before. A bunch of us have been here before. And what did we decide to do? Why did we decide to do it? What was this all for? You know, oh wait, there's a charter. What's the highest punishment in the charter? Oh yeah. Like, and it's like everything comes back, and it goes back to what I was saying before. Like, if I'm, you know, if I ever, well, no, because she doesn't know that Rick's alive yet. But this idea of like, you know, what is it for? You know, what's the lesson here? If I went through all this shit to realize like it could have gone a completely different way, had I made a different decision to not help somebody, to not exercise mercy when I could have. You know, I've been through so much shit, and so I mean, and now we go back to Negan. We're asking the question of what happens to him, and I feel like everything is pointing to us, and it repeats. Like ways that we can see Negan a little differently, like in spite of what he's done and what Virgil's done, what a bunch of people have done. Good reminder, like the whole satellite station list, satellite station massacre, all the things that the group has done that have been quite unsavory. You know, if looked into via a different angle, and so yeah, I think they're gonna keep him around.
Yeah. Look, here's my thing with Negan, because this is the conversation that it always winds up coming back to. I think that they never should have adapted the fact that he had a harem full of women in the comic. And I think that's what makes it so difficult for so many people. That is the thing that I constantly hear. They're like, but he raped those women. And I'm like, yeah, they probably never should have adapted. Like, what a weird thing to work around on the show. And it's something that anytime that we talk about the Negan redemption arc and I'm talking to someone on the phone about it, I have to bring it up. And I'm like, well, what about this? Are we saying that's okay? Like,
yeah. And that's the oh, you know what it is? It wouldn't have been so bad. It really wouldn't have if it had only been like 2+ years into the apocalypse. That's the only thing that bugs me. Because if it was like 8 years, and it wasn't, you could, because the whole idea of Negan was supposed to be, like you said, saving people, and then like Carl goes, "Hey, buddy, when did this get away from you?" And then we see Negan go, "Alpha, hey, when did this get away from you? Because you're talking a bunch of shit that is absolutely wrong." And so he's trying to give her that speech, because I think he had feelings for her, but that's a whole other conversation. But it's the idea of when did this get away from you? And so if it had been a little bit longer than 2+ years, I could say, okay, there's a progression here. He's going down a path where he feels like, okay, this is what it takes. This is what it takes. This is what it's taking from me, this venture. And so you give a piece of your soul. So of course it makes you comfortable doing other bad things, other less savory things. And so you reach this path. 2 years seems way soon, especially like when you lose your wife. I think right on the line of when things are going down, right? So, yeah. Which I think, didn't he say to Gabriel that he wasn't faithful to her? Also, I can't.
Oh
remember.
Yeah. Okay. He cheated on his wife. I mean, you have that, and then I think that you just also have. It's so weird because Negan had his own Negan was very clear on how he did not like other men abusing. Yeah. Right. He had his rules where he was like, this is not an okay thing. And that was why he killed the guy who was about to go after Sasha.
Right.
But then yes. But then it was
Another
like,
Dave.
hi.
Sorry.
It's like, hi, don't you realize you're doing the same thing? And he didn't realize that.
I think he rationalized it because he wasn't being forceful. Because he didn't physically grab them and hold them down. Instead of it was a mental force because he was holding them.
It was a fear tactic.
Yeah.
Exactly. Look at Sherry and not Austin, Dwight. Sherry was his wife, and that was why her husband was allowed to live.
And he made him divorce her.
Exactly. Yeah, divorce her.
And they got married because they were called wives.
His wives. Exactly. So in his mind, see, he rationalized all this because he wasn't being physically forceful. He didn't see a problem with it. Obviously it's wrong. We all see what's wrong with that situation. But he didn't. What he didn't want was, his guys being rough with the women.
Right. I mean, what good will they be for to him?
Yeah,
But anyway,
how do you draw that line? Wrong is wrong.
I think all signs are pointing, and maybe this next episode, depending on the way it plays out with Daryl and Negan and tying him up and, I don't know, taking him in, I guess, because we don't see really anything after that. There could be things that the good guys do to him that don't feel right considering the outcome. So I guess, and Carol not being in the picture anymore. So I do want to wrap up the rest of the sneak peeks, because talking about keeping somebody around, we've got Beta in another frame holding Alpha's, I don't even know if it's active, walker head. He's like cuddling up to her, like meeting of the minds kind of thing. And I'm like, oh shit, this is not going to turn out well at all. And Eugene's telling the group what he plans on doing, meeting Stephanie. That's that semi-iconic, highway scene leading towards, obviously, southbound? West Virginia. Yeah, it's southbound, because they're in Virginia now. Mm-hmm. But kind of like the scene of Rick riding to Atlanta, sort of looks like that. So there's a little bit of a parallel there. I mean, your world's about to get a whole lot bigger. No.
Where are they heading, Dave? Where are they heading? South of the what?
The Kanawha River. Charleston Rail Station, was it? Am I right?
Something. Yeah.
Burned into my head right now. And we know that Ezekiel's going to join him for two reasons. We see him in a frame with him and Yumiko. You see Jerry and him hug as if it was going to be their last time. And I do feel like he's going with her out of kind of almost, rightfully so, self-interest, because maybe they have the simple treatment for his cancer, maybe, and he'll be around a little longer than we thought. So there's that.
That'd be awesome.
And this is just me spitballing right now, talking complete shit right now. So one more thing. As we see Beta hold Alpha's head, and we see in a couple of other frames, he's in this area that looks kind of like Humbug's Gulch. I don't know if you saw sneak peeks.
I didn't watch this one.
It looks like a cross between like a Main Street kind of area, but like the house that he's like at this balcony, which almost looks like one of those riverboat balconies, or these saloon, like New Orleans style balconies. The way the house is kind of looking, and he's like, my walker friends, he's gathering his horde from the balcony up there. He's going, yes, woo-hoo. And so I got some of those Humbug Gulch vibes along with Beta.
God
and
damn it.
You're like, oh yeah,
they're gonna kill him, aren't they?
Well, he sewed the piece of that, back together. So
yeah, I hope that we get more JDM and Ryan Hurst scenes, and I would love to see Norman in a scene. Like, I'd love to see all three of them together, just because they're such good friends off the show.
They're gonna kill him, and I'm gonna cry so hard again.
Yeah.
First of all, what do you think about all of these sneak peeks? Like, what do you think is happening here?
I think that he obviously wants to probably go after Negan. That's what I would think. I think that he would want revenge. The moment he wanted to kill Negan, from the moment that he was like, why are we even letting this guy join our group? Right? I see him just on a direct path. But in my mind, I feel like just knowing things about the season that were previously announced, I know that we're waiting to see some other things. I imagine Princess has to show up at some point. I don't know when.
And Maggie.
But we know that, and Maggie hopefully at some point, right? So I don't even know if we're going to see that. I don't know if they were waiting to show some of them in the finale, or I don't know if we're going to see some people in these next two episodes. I would love to see a Negan Aaron scene after their last, moment where Aaron was ready to kill Negan, basically. And I would love to see them. And there's a reason why I'd love to see that, because I think back to the comics of how Beta died in the comics. And it was, I believe, Aaron and Jesus. And they kind of teamed up a little bit. And we don't have Jesus anymore. So could we see
sure
Aaron? Could we see Aaron and Negan team up? I don't know.
I kind of want Aaron to take him out on his own. I feel like Aaron needs a win after all of that.
Aaron is so angry.
Yes, he is.
I have such a hard time seeing Aaron as threatening, though. The more mad he gets, I'm like, look at he's just so cute. He's like a little pit bull puppy growling at you. He's trying to be so tough, but he's just not scary.
Like, look at me and my new hand. No.
Yeah. Like, oh, look at your cute little spiky ball. Oh.
I'm sure that's what Negan thinks every time he sees him. Oh, you look so cute with your little beard and your little mace.
Right. Well, even that scene, right? Like I'm picturing Aaron's face, like in that scene, like getting so angry at Negan and like marching towards him, and I'm just like, oh,
It is a little over the top. Yeah.
Scary.
I don't know. I'm buying it though. I mean, he's got like think about narratively. Like he's got a daughter. He's doing the best he can. He lost his fucking arm. Like,
right.
And he's doing the best he can. So I mean, if you want to go like Shadow Rick on this one, and there's part of me that thinks, okay, like I think with Jesus' sword, so he's technically teaming up with Jesus and his mace, our powers combined. Poof. You know, I'll unmask Beta with the sword and I'll punch him in the face with my mace. So that's why it rhymes with mace.
Do you think Aaron would recognize then who, if he unmasks him, would he recognize who Beta is? Because we still have yet to really fully discuss that, even though it's kind of out there. I feel like who Beta is.
You know what? Didn't we see a scene with Aaron? And I don't know who he's talking to. Was it his daughter talking about how his brother liked country music or something?
Oh, wow. That's a very specific... I would have to go back and check that.
It's only because you asked that question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I thought you were going to bring up something else, which is, I think it's one of Jesus's final episodes where do you remember when he's listening to records at the hilltop? And I believe that the record he's listening to is supposed to be...
Oh, Magna. Magna was listening.
Oh, was it Magna listening?
Yeah.
He was singing Emily Kinney's song.
But now I'm wondering if now Jesus is listening to an album that Ryan Hurst, and they planted that way in advance.
Yeah. No, I have to go back and check because I thought that they were using like a combination of Emily Kinney's music with something else. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Oh, that was the Magna episode. Yeah. But,
right.
I mean, seeds planted, but like when he's talking to his daughter about his brother liking a certain music, or it could be country. I don't know. But oh my god, like what if Beta is his brother? No, I don't know.
No.
That would fuck me up because you don't see his brother die. I don't think that I think he said he collected them for his brother at first, thinking he might be alive. Maybe that's why, and I think that was the impetus for him finding people in the hopes to find his brother. But like, and then it just ended up being his thing. I can't remember the exact reason why he was collecting license plates and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
Because that does come back again. But could be something to it. Maybe he mentioned the artist and we didn't even know it. That Beta's representing. I don't know. That would be a head trip, though.
Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't. I don't know.
Well, the all-important question, I think, is really obviously yes. But I want to frame it in a way that makes you think a little bit. Because is Michonne going to make her way into the movies? It's hard to say.
How? I feel like it has to be. I mean,
it has to be.
Here's what I think, and here's what I've heard. Because I think Brandon's thrown it out there into the world, but because I saw it on one of his colleagues' like videos recently, so I think it's fair for me to say then if it's already out there.
I think it is already out there. Maybe from Talking Dead too. Like her journey's not over or something.
Right, but I think the plan is for her to be in one of these movies, but then I saw EW like ask Denai about this, and Denai was like, oh really, what have you heard from Scott Gimple? Like basically saying I haven't heard anything, but they want me to be, right? Which I think is kind of funny. So I feel like they have these plans for her, but I don't know if she's on board for them yet.
Yeah,
somebody might want to tell her that they have plans.
Right.
That's why I was kind of saying, like, I don't know, guys. It's almost as if she can't say no, but it really does depend on how certain properties perform in the next several months. So,
dang.
Which I based on like name dropping both you, yeah, but Sarah Beth Pollock was telling me how much she likes what she's seen with The Walking Dead World Beyond. When she went there, she was telling us all about how it's going to unfold, or somewhat. And, like, quoting, it's darker than you could ever imagine. Like the series is darker than you would expect it to be.
I haven't watched the pilot yet. I have the pilot, but I'm just gonna say I haven't heard as positive things about it. So,
that's interesting.
And I think that's why it's a limited 2-season series. So,
oh, I see.
I'm looking at this World Beyond series as something to connect one thing to another.
Like a bridge,
maybe fill in some, maybe to fill in some, give us some answers for questions that we've had. You know, fill in some gaps. Like to me, this whole limited series is just a filler for everything else going on, and I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that.
I
definitely want it to be something more, though. Like
I think that's the only purpose it's going to serve. That's just how I feel. I think that it's just something. It's filler for before the film because they don't have, because it's not here.
Where is it?
Instead of having a 6-hour movie, we're going to give you a limited series and then just give you the last hour and a half, 2 hours of a movie.
So far, I've liked the way they've teased this new series. Personally, I know who's working on it. So, I mean, Matt Negretti did the episode with Connie saving the baby in the sorghum fields at Hilltop. He did that episode. And then when you hear about him, and I want to say that shortly after we found out that he was going to be doing The Walking Dead World Beyond, TWD3 hashtag. And so, like, you see that episode, how much it made your heart pound, to not hear anything the way Connie doesn't hear things. Like, those choices, those were his choices, mostly his choices. I mean, if that's any indicator of the kind of series that we're going to see, I mean, I think I'm kind of psyched. I like the way they've been introducing color into it too, like in a sense, because the further down we go along the series, kind of like what you were saying about how they depicted that season two scene. It was darker. It was more, less detailed. And you see this in Fear the Walking Dead, and you see, how the color grading keeps going down and down, or, if it's past scenes, it goes up and up. But it's like this almost singular palette, warm or cold. It's not something in between. Yeah, and so when you see a series that potentially is popping full of color because there's modernity, there's like this confrontation with modernity, and then also confrontation with fantasy, like what they imagine it could be out there. And so maybe that's their perspective walking into the apocalypse. There's like, they don't know what to expect, so everything's bright and vibrant and detailed, not like beaten down. These people have not had to deal with that. So everything they're looking at is fantastic. And so I think that plays into the cinematography.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason that I thought this series was going to be so much farther into the future than what it actually is.
Right.
Because it's so colorful and bright, and like, to me, that makes me feel like we're like years and years and years into the future where, vegetation has started to regrow and come over things, and not just like, swampy things, but like, leaves and flowers and things are sprouting from these things. Like, yeah, the idea that there were colorful things in the world made me feel like we were, at least 15
10 years into the future.
To 20 years. Well, no, we are 10 years in. I'm saying like 15 to 20 from the beginning.
I was just kidding. Yeah. Which is what I originally said until New York Comic Con said, no, idiot.
Right. I like our idea better, Dave.
I know.
We got this.
But the more I think about it, though, like the more it actually even kind of makes sense if you just throw that away. Because, like, and I only say this because my eye is not off the ball. Okay, everything that Isabel says to Althea, like, I'm not keeping my eye off of that. So when I look at The Walking Dead World Beyond, I look at how this community now operates, but knowing the other side of it. Because, like, imagine their community. It's not just walls that they're behind. It's got to be walls upon walls upon walls. Like, geographically, topographically, whatever it is. So whatever these kids are going into, they're facing those obstacles on the way out of whatever community they're in. And so I'm thinking, whatever's protecting these insular communities, that's, there's a lot of, and so you'd see this vegetation, these walkers that have been grown over time. So they're untouched. Like, there's nothing there to disturb them, really, essentially. So it's plausible. Like there's something going on there, especially with that first scene that they're teasing with the airplane crash in the past. And that the first few photos that were teaser photos that we're seeing out of Virginia, I think it was, like with the fuselage and all that. So something must have happened there, and they cordoned off. But the one thing that I kind of want to touch upon that Isabel says, or that, rather Althea says, is how things went down. The National Guard and the military batting heads. So that's the thing that I kind of want to pay attention to see if they follow that continuity and how that plays into these communities. Like, who won? Or did they come to an agreement to share power? Or, I'm ever since that narrative is we kind of got a touch of that at the beginning of Fear the Walking Dead, but it comes full circle with Althea. And so...
Well, yeah, that was a huge moment, in Althea's tapes when she says, there's a moment of hope. Oh, good, the cavalry's here. Oh, wait, now they're shooting at each other. Oh, shit. That's a terrifying moment when you think the people who are going to save you, now all of a sudden they're attacking each other. Now you are really on your own.
And only Althea knows the truth. And us.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Because we get to, be at home safe on our couches just watching it all.
Safe.
Safe, yeah. There was one thing. Every time I hear a new word for walkers, we hear Virgil refer to them as rippers this episode.
Yes. Good point. Good call.
I like that.
I have a thing too, and it's also a small thing. Just the constant lost references, but where they will ultimately end up is at Oceanside, I think. Because I think they were on their way inland. They're not with Michonne. It sounds like they were on their way to Oceanside, I think. So maybe...
Who's that?
The three others.
Oh, okay.
On the island.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, you think so?
We may see them again.
You think we're going to see them? Okay.
Well, the one
Celeste.
guy's a pretty famous actor. I recognize the dude.
Yeah, he looked familiar.
He is what I would consider a well-known. So we might see him again.
Yeah, Celeste is the only one that has a name, and I think that was the middle, the scientist. The middle?
Lucy. One of them was the other one was Lucy.
Oh, okay. Oh, Lucy's the
other woman.
janitor, essentially.
She was joking. She wasn't really the janitor. She was.
Was she not? I didn't really get that. Okay.
No,
she was too intense. I couldn't pay attention.
She was making a joke, and then Celeste swatted her and went,
I see.
She assists us.
Yes.
But I didn't catch the guy's name.
There is one other thing that I noted that we didn't touch upon. And this goes back to the first episode of The Walking Dead. And I just thought this was something that made me kind of like laugh a little bit, because Michonne tells Judith that she'll try to reach out to her every morning on her walkie-talkie. She'll try her every morning on this walkie as long as I can. And I was like, where have we heard that before? Oh, when Rick gave Morgan the walkie-talkie, and he said, I'll try you. I'll turn this on for a few minutes every day at dawn. And then Rick kind of like forgot. So for me, the joke was like, well, I hope Michonne, is truer to her word than Rick was to Morgan.
Right.
Because she was trying to reach out to her in the middle of all the shit at Hilltop. It's not happening. There is another thing that you mentioned that I was going to give you credit for, but was the sign that's in the infirmary that they raid to try to get to his family. What's behind Virgil? It's a sign that's pertinent to our time.
It said "Stop the spread," although that was for gonorrhea, and I think it's
Folks, stop the spread.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
I'm not saying I have it. I'm just saying it's funny.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I think that was one of the official photos that they actually had released for 10/13. You could see it in the background.
Oh, the promo photos, or
yeah, it was one of the promo photos. You can see the poster, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
That's like when that's when Chernobyl came out, and it was Fear the Walking Dead. Like, did they know that Chernobyl was coming out around the same time it was going to air? Because Fear the Walking Dead season 5 has a reactor that's going to explode.
Yeah.
So like, it's like, did they know we were going to go into a pandemic 7 months ago, 6 months ago? Or 8 months ago in the writer's room?
I think that they definitely would have had the finale finished if they knew that we were going to go into a pandemic. Or maybe not, because they want to hold it for later. Who knows? I don't know.
I think we're calling time of death 3 hours, technically. So
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun. So first of all, thank you both, Kirsten, Rachel, for joining me, David Cameo, on this ride. If you like what you heard, people, leave a like and comment, and subscribe to our content. We do it every week because we love you and we love the show and we love to break it down. And if it pleases you, rate this podcast on ratethispodcast.com/squawkingdead. Give us 5 stars and an eggplant and we will love you forever. Yes, just an eggplant. I am so thrilled to have had you, Kirsten. I really appreciate you coming aboard for not only the insights that you provided that night, but some of the insights that we would have never figured out on our own, or at least confirmed on our own. In any case, we've been Squawking Dead. Have a good night, folks. Thank you, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.